Salutations, Noel here, Noel Joshua Hadley. You know, just the other day, somebody called me Joshua, which I thought was nice. I'm like, oh, how sweet. I actually, back in the day, that's what I went by. When my wife and I met each other in high school back in the 90s, she actually knew me as Josh back then, singular, before Joshua. She didn't even know me as Noel back then. And this is a Q&A tonight, and it's going to be a relaxed environment, hopefully. Take my time and allow people to show up, of course, and feel free to ask questions. But since it is a Q&A, I thought I would start out, well, first drinking a cup of Joe. The thing about this is that I'm going to be totally wired afterwards. And I almost didn't go with coffee. I almost went with water. And I realized that, I would be too sluggish for you guys. Some people are showing up. Welcome, everybody who's showing up. And anyways, I'll be wired after the show tonight. I'll probably stay up and watch a movie. The good thing is, though, is that I'm researching. My next paper I'm researching is the feminine divine. Now, we talk a lot about the feminine divine in terms of the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, wisdom, the mother. And you guys know that I've talked a good deal about Mary Magdalene, but I'm looking at taking it to the next kind of logical step, because we talk a lot about the divine, the masculine divine, but we don't talk about the feminine divine. And so I'm researching the feminine divine in fairy tales, and Grimm's fairy tales and so on and so forth. And those things are loaded. Of course, the big trap that most people go with is they look into Grimm's fairy tales and they're like, oh, Mary Magdalene. It's like, no. Come on, let's take this a little bit further than just the character archetype of Mary Magdalene, and look at it from a dualistic perspective. You have Adam and you have Eve. You have the masculine divine and you have the feminine divine. Anyways, so I'll be up later tonight watching Sleeping Beauty. I watched that the other night. I had never seen the 1959 cartoon of Sleeping Beauty before, and I was like mine, just like my eyes just blown open at what I was seeing. Even a year ago. Now I woke up, a decade ago, a long time ago. I've learned a lot. If I had seen Sleeping Beauty a year ago, 2 years ago, even a year ago, I would have seen stuff. But I just want to tell everybody, I have never done an illegal drug in my life, but I imagine that if I did, that's what the experience would be like. Watching Sleeping Beauty the other night, my mind was just like, what? So I'm like watching it all, like seeing stuff everywhere. So I'm excited for that write-up. I think you guys are going to really dig it. Now, there's a few things that I want to cover tonight. And for those of you showing up, it looks like people are trickling in right now. I hope to get a good number tonight. But however many people show up, feel free to ask questions, and I'll try my best to answer them. I do have some material to go over in the meantime. And the first thing I want to talk about, and I'll probably cover this a few times tonight, so just stay with me, everybody. Right now, of course, you're looking at my main website, but here's my fundraiser right here. And I'm hoping the first time I did this, it was like the last few days of January. I raised the entire month's amount in like 5 days. It was really great. It was incredible. You guys were awesome. Now this is for June. No, wait, this is May. I'm sorry. Wait, this is May. This is May. We're not in June yet. Thank heavens. And it's been open for 5-6 days. 5 days. I don't know. I raised. What did I raise? I don't know. Don't make me do the math on this. Not quite 20% yet. And anyways, I love to now I ask everybody, if you guys want to support this ministry and keep me afloat, keep me going. This is to provide, for my family and the income of my household. I ask first and foremost that you guys sign up on Patreon. That's the best way to do it. But if not, if you want to this is GoFundMe. This is what I need to make above and beyond. So please come by. I appreciate you guys' gifts. Thank you very much. Something I did want to show you guys. I showed this to my Torah portions group, my Sabbath group last Friday night. on my main website here, now there's my picture right here in the top left of the screen that's blocking this. You can't see it. But if you go to my website, The Unexpected Cosmology, you're going to see a link for archives and resource material. And if you click on that, well, a couple of things are going to scroll down. You're going to see article updates. And let's start with the article archive. Let's just go to this room over here. Now, I want to point this out because actually, maybe I should. Let's see if I can switch my photo away from the screen. That's okay. I decided I was just feeling so blessed and grateful for everyone that have been sacrificing and to keep the Unexpected Cosmology afloat, that I actually opened up this article archives room. This used to be that, you had to pay $5 a month to get access to the website. I just opened up this room. So this right here, you're looking at all my different articles, all these different PDFs. And I can't say all because it's all the PDFs I do have. I am actively working to go through my website, take all my old articles, format them, update them, turn them into PDFs. Some of these PDFs are anywhere from, they could be 10 pages, they could be 20, they could be 100, they could be 300 pages. I mean, these are all just different articles and topics, and just, happy reading, have fun with it. Another thing that is open for everybody is the Sacred Scripture Room. Of course, these are all PDFs as well. You can go through, and I would be surprised if you come here and you have read every one of these books. There's quite a lot, and I have more to add. And again, thank you everyone for your patience while we updated the new website. The old website was destroyed. It took the wrecking ball to it. And my goal is to make the new one even better. Now, what I wanted to show you guys, this is brand new. My wife developed this from scratch. I'm really excited about this. And we talk a lot about the 613 commands here from the Torah. And that, that frightens a lot of people. It sounds very anthropological. And most people are trained to think that the 613 are no longer applicable. All they need to keep is the 10. Well, of course, Yahushua HaMashiach, a Messiah, Jesus Christ, if you prefer, or Jesus Christus, said that he was asked, what is the greatest command? And his response was, well, the greatest command is to love God, love Elohim with all your heart. And the next is to love your neighbor as yourself. And what he actually did there was he took the 10 commandments and he took the first 5, and then the second 5. The first 5, of course, describe loving Elohim, loving Elohim. The second 5 describe loving your neighbor. And then he said that all the law and all the prophets hang upon these 2, the 5 and the 5. So what we did here, this is a program on my website designed for people who are new to the Torah, who are investigating and want to learn more about it, or for people who've been in it for a long time and want to refer to it. And it's fun to go in here and play around. So these right here, these 2 orange circles are connected, of course, to the green one in the middle. These are the 5 and the 5. This makes up the 10 commandments. And on each of these, you can see up here is the orange circle that says love others. And so you have do not commit adultery, don't steal, don't covet, don't bear false witness, and do not kill. Well, down here you have love God, love Elohim, and you have no graven images, no other Elohim, remember the Sabbath, honor your father and mother. So I'm gonna pick a random one here, show this to you guys. Let's go to number 2, no graven images. So I'm going to click on this, and boom, this pops up. And what you can see here this is the second command, no graven images. And you can see all the different commands in the 613 that describe what it means to not have graven images. So I'm just going to pick a random one. I'm going to go to 293. And this comes from Leviticus 19. This was our last Torah portion. We read through Leviticus 19 and 20, and I was just like blown away by, had to be 30, 40 of these commands of the 613 just in those 2 chapters. It was a lot. But it says, do not cut your bodies in honor of the dead. So, I mean, that seems pretty good. That seems like a good command to have, I would think. I would hope that Christianity would agree that we should not be cutting our bodies in honor of the dead. Now, another great feature here to this is that you can pick your translation. Unfortunately, I got to change my picture. Excuse me, guys. Give me a second. Be patient with me. So you could see this. What if I did this? Okay. I'll shrink my picture down. So over here in the left-hand corner, you can pick your Bible translation. I'm going by the King James. You've got New Century Version, the NIV, the NKJV, the NLT, the New Living Translation, the Young Literal Translation, a bunch of different ones to look at. The Darby, the ASV, the American Standard. Anyways, I'm going with the King James. So let's look at another one here. 270. This comes from Deuteronomy chapter 7. It says, do not lust after the wealth of the false gods. Okay, that seems that'd be a form of coveting, really. That seems like a good command. There's other gods out there. Let's not lust after their wealth. I hope Christianity can agree with that. When they say the Torah is done away with. Law number 95. It says, according to Numbers chapter 30, the law of binding and losing a vow. Okay, so let me actually click on this, Numbers 30, and it says, okay, so this is the whole I won't go through this. That's a whole study in itself for Numbers. It's a great chapter. Can't wait to get to in my Torah portions. Let's try another one, though. Deuteronomy 16 says, do not worship Asherah, the queen of heaven. Can everyone agree to that? I think that's pretty good. Anyways, I might throw this out there later tonight for those who are showing up at a later time. And yeah, I put this up here. Thank you, Pamela. She said, Sarah Hadley is brilliant. Of course, she's referring to my wife. And I'm very grateful for her. And she's an amazing software engineer. She made this very simple and practical. All right. Another thing to think about, too, that I added here. So I'm going to go back to the Sacred Scripture Archives room. And at the very top of the page, again, my picture is blocking it. I'm sorry, I can't scroll down for it. Is a document called the 613. And this is just another way that I took all of the 613 laws in the Torah and I organized them according to the 10 commandments. So over here we see no other gods before me. And so you can see all the commands that explain how you don't have any other gods or any other Elohim or Elohim, whichever you prefer, before him. Number 2, no graven images. Okay, and so you can go through, and this sources every single chapter and verse. It gives all the addresses. It's just for your study habits, a way for you to understand the Torah better. I think this is really important. It is, as a ministry, that we have these kind of tools for people of all different stages in the walk to come and find for themselves. Now, starting off with the questions tonight. And I'm hoping you guys have questions for me. Shalom, everybody who's just now coming in. One of the questions I was given was, how do I referred to a lot of different text and extra biblical text, and how do I determine what is truth? Well, first of all, how do I determine what is truth, right? But when you have different texts that seem to conflict with each other, like you have one extra biblical text that says one thing, and then you have another extra biblical text that says another, and they don't seem to fit together well, how do I rectify that? And I thought it was a really great question. So I wanted to go over that. And I think the way I want to address, now keep in mind, in canon, we still have, like, to be frank or honest, I mean, you can put some of the gospels together and you're like, how do these fit? You could take Paul's Paul's epistles with Messiah's words, and like, how do these fit? A lot of people can't make them fit, and they throw out Paul. And I actually think that they do fit, and I've made that attempt to show. But let's take something like Genesis 6, all right? Because Genesis 6 is one of the most controversial passages. In fact, there was I won't give the name of the YouTube channel, but there is a YouTube channel that I follow that I respect the individual very much. And he just did a big thing on Genesis 6, how, there's no angels in the text. It's just referring to men. He was taking the Sethite theory. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through these different passages, and we're going to, talk about them, see which is right. Do they both fit? Do they both connect? In my opinion, both theories, the Sethite theory and the sons of El theory, they connect together. Now, anyone who says that the sons of Elohim are the sons of Seth are going to call them the sons of Elohim. You guys know what I mean. There's the people who say the sons of El came down, Genesis 6. Those are the angels, right? the angelic beings, celestial beings. And then there are people that are saying, no, it's just referring to people, that people took wives. All right. So this is what it says in Genesis chapter 6, right here. Classic passage. I probably don't even need to read it, but it says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them women of all which they chose. So the big question here is, what does it mean, the sons of Elohim? Now, of course, we see that the Nephilim are born from them, and I would assume that if you are of the impression that this is referring specifically to the sons of Seth, to people, then the Nephilim are going to have to take on a different interpretation. Like, you're not going to go into Nephilim research at this point. That would be my guess. Or else, where did the Nephilim come from? Now it does say here that in Genesis 6, it does say there were Nephilim in the earth in those days, who also gathered afterward, when the sons of Elohim came into the daughters of men, and they bore children unto them. The same became warriors and tyrants, which were from everlasting mortal men of the name. So I'm assuming that the sons of Seth, they're saying that the Nephilim are just these great warriors, men of renown. They're not the giant, hybrid type creatures that we often think about in Nephilim research. All right, so this is what it says in Enoch chapter 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. So here they're making it's like a double clarity. It first says angels. I would imagine the Hebrew word here is malach, meaning messengers. And in case you're going to argue what an angel, a malach, a messenger is here, it says the children of heaven. So it seems pretty clear in Enoch that they came from heaven, right? Now, obviously, the sons of Seth people are going to discount Enoch. All right, but let's keep reading. This is what it says in Jubilees. And it came to pass, when the children of men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the angels of Elohim, or Elohim, or God, if you prefer, the angels of Elohim saw them on a certain year of this Jubilee, that they were beautiful to look upon, and they took themselves wives of all whom they chose. And they bare unto them sons, and they were giants. That one makes it pretty clear that the Nephilim are giants. So we can see here that both Enoch and Jubilees takes the angel theory, right? Well, let's keep reading. Now we're at Jasher. And it's funny, Jubilees and Jasher is like Coke and Pepsi, or Nintendo and PlayStation, or I don't know, Reebok and Nike. Is Ford and Toyota? Don't know. Water and oil. It seems like people either pick one or the other. And the people who love Jubilees don't like Jasher. There are people who love Jasher who don't like Jubilees. And this is what it says in there. And I'm starting in verse 18 here, that's highlighted. And their judges and rulers. So it doesn't say angels here. It says judges and rulers. And their judges and rulers went to the daughters of men, and took their wives by force from their husbands according to their choice. I actually really like that. I mean, as horrific as the scene is, I really like the description that they took these women from their husbands by force according to their choice. Because that's always how I imagine. I mean, imagine that the women are screaming, they're being drug off, the guys are being killed. Like the women are being taken by the husbands aren't living after this. They're being murdered. But here it's the judges and rulers, right? It's not angels. All right. So do we throw out Jasher? What does that mean? Well, this even gets more curiouser, because now I'm going to read from the Aramaic Targum. And it says in chapter 6 of Genesis, and it was when the sons of men began to multiply upon the face of the earth, and fair daughters were born to them. And the sons of the great, who are they? The sons of the great, saw that the daughters of men were beautiful and painted and curled, walking with revelation of the flesh, and with imaginations of wickedness, that they took them wives of all who they pleased. Now pay attention here, that the whoever these sons of the great are, they see that the women already are painted, curled, walking with revelation of the flesh. Now, many of you already know where I'm going with this, that Azazel is the one that introduced the painted faces to the ladies. The question of the hour is, did he introduce it to the ladies before the Watchers came down or after the Watchers came down? Because notice what it says in verse 4 here, as if to separate the sons of the great from the Watchers. It says in chapter 6, verse 4 of the Aramaic Targum, Samjaza and Uzziel, who fell from heaven, were on the earth in those days. And also, after the sons of the great had gone in with the daughters of men, they bare to them. So it seems to be separating these two Watchers from the sons of the great. Something to think about. All right, well, moving on to second Adam and Eve, or Chahwaha, second Adam and Eve. This comes from chapter 11, verse 4. Now, I have a whole article on this. I'm taking out all my commentary and a lot of the verses too. I'm shortening it, kind of just going through the verses for you. And it says, but because of their own purity, they were named children of Elohim. Now, this is referring to the sons of Seth. So the book of first and second Adam and Eve famously takes the sons of Seth theory. They're named the children of Elohim, and they were with Elohim instead of the host of angels who fell. For they continued in praises to Elohim and in singing psalms unto him in their cave, the cave of treasures. Now, what's interesting about Adam and Eve, book 1 and book 2, is that it also recognizes, just like the Aramaic Targum, that there was these group of angels that fell at this time. It essentially agrees with Enoch. It just calls the sons of Seth the sons of Elohim. All right, so moving on, another passage from second Adam and Eve, verse 7, chapter 17, it says, when those men heard these words of the elder, every one of Cain's sons brought his wife, and another brought his daughter. And so many women came to them, everyone addressing Yared either for himself or for his wife, all alike. Now, Yared is one of the sons of Seth, and this is his, or you would know him as Jared. A lot of people know him as Jared. This is his generation. And according to this, again, it's emphasizing the point, the sons of Seth are the children of Elohim, and the sons of Cain are literally bringing their wives and daughters to them and saying, you can have whoever you want. You can take my wife, take my daughter, take any of them. This would be what they're saying. The sons of Elohim came down and took women of who they pleased. All right. Another one from the same chapter. Actually, I should have read this one first. It precedes this one. Satan then appeared to him, to Jared, with 30 men of his host. So this would be referring to the 30 of the host of Azazel. I'm thinking of the 200. All right. There's 30 of the 200. In the form of handsome men, Satan himself being the elder and tallest among them with a fine beard. They stood at the mouth of the cave and called out Yared from within. And so the idea is that these 30 men apparently have already taken women. Now, maybe some of you are seeing where I'm going with this. What I'm going to be showing is that even within the sons of Seth theory, you still have the Watchers. They still take account of the Watchers. And what I think happened is that the Watchers came down first, took wives, and then they were called the sons of Elohim, but so were the sons of Seth. And that could be attributable to the fact that we were, all of us in our pre-existence, we were all sons of Elohim. Does that click? So even the Watchers, the difference with the Watchers is that they did not, if you want to say incarnate, they did not come into human seed and grow up as a human. They decided to come straight down and take wives. That's a huge naughty no-no. And I personally think one of my big theories that I'm developing through all of this, through all of these teachings, is that that's one of the attractions to coming down to the earth and growing up, is to find a spouse eternally, a wife. And the sin of the Watchers is they chose to circumnavigate that and just come down and take wives. All right, now this passage here is from Enoch. No, second Adam and Eve again. It says, and the sons of Cain who wrought all this and shone in beauty and gorgeous apparel, gathered together at the foot of the mountain in splendor with horns and gorgeous dresses and horse races, committing all manner of abomination. Meanwhile, the children of Seth who were on the holy mountain prayed and praised Elohim in the place of the host of angels who had fallen. Wherefore Elohim had called them angels, because he rejoiced over them greatly. So it's kind of interesting here. It's actually saying that the sons of Seth are taking the place of the fallen watchers. The fallen watchers were sons of Elohim. They're no longer. And now the sons of Seth are taking their place. And I'm always trying to imagine this scene that they're on this mountain. They can't come down from this mountain. It's a holy mountain. And you have the sons of Cain surrounding this mountain. And they've got the fires down there. They're building. It says they're blowing horns. They're playing instruments. Probably putting on rock concerts. They got the horse races. They're building up huge tracks and sporting arenas and all these things, and probably carnivals. And they're trying to bring them down right into this in this vain lifestyle. And once they go down, they can't come back up. But I thought it was interesting here that the women, again, they're showing in beauty and gorgeous apparel. That was something Azazel introduced. Of course, we see that here, Azazel in Enoch chapter 8. Moreover, Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and the fabrication of mirrors, and the workmanship of bracelets and ornaments, the use of paint, the beautifying of the eyebrows, stones of very valuable and select kind, and all sorts of dyes. I'm actually finishing up right now a presentation I'll be giving maybe next week on Azazel, the scapegoat. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it, going through all the extra biblical passages I can find on Azazel, giving a complete picture. Now, so getting back to the question, personally here, I think of this as like a two-witness approach. The Gospels are a great account of this. You got 4 Gospels, you got the Synoptic Gospels, and then you got over in left field, you have the Gospel of John, Yochanan, which is very different from the other 3. And you hold them up, and the same stories, they have different dialogue. Sometimes there'll be extra characters or less characters, or things a little bit different. And for me, this makes it all the more human. It means that there wasn't, it wasn't necessarily just these collaborators looking over each other and just copying it down and, trying to imitate something. Anytime you have a crime scene, right, you have multiple witnesses and you try to describe it, they're all going to have variations. And I think of the same thing with this story with with Genesis 6. And again, if you read my paper, I point out that I think that they're both correct. I think the sons of Seth and the sons of Elohim, being the watchers, are both correct. Different point of views, but they both collaborate with each other. And of course, that's the whole point of our being here, is that we were the bastard sons of Elohim. This comes from the Gospel of the Nazarene, according to Messiah, and he says that we're here to reclaim our status. Now, so talking about how we distinguish what books are true and what aren't, because I read a lot of books, and some of them, I have to say, are a little disappointing. They start out really great. I'm like, I really like this, and then it just takes a nosedive, and it just blows up, and I'm like, this is awful, right? All right, so this is what it says. I'm reading from the Book of Wisdom. This comes from the Colburn. I did a study on this last summer. And it says, the true prophet is a message bearer who has heard a voice crying out across the distances, right? There's this gorge, and on the other side is, you could say, eternity or the celestial realm. And they're hearing these echoes, these voices come across, right? The message may not be clearly heard and perhaps conveyed with errors and distortion. And let's just say that some are more distorted than others. But if it is the dedicated effort of a sincere man, it must be of value. Now, just quickly point out for everyone, before anyone excuse anything I'm saying here, is that for me, the ultimate truth is the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, copied down by Moshe, dictated from Yahuwah, or Yahuwah, if you prefer. And for me, that is the ultimate truth, all right, of which the prophets are commenting upon, the epistle writers are commenting upon, in which all of the books of the Old and New Testament are like cogwheels, and they all work together in the big clock face, and it all connects with the Torah. All right. But when you get into the extra biblical book territory, you get more and more into this distant voice idea. And some of these people, they might have biases. They might have certain point of views that are maybe not entirely accurate. Let's keep reading. Because there are many false prophets, the words of a true prophet do not lose their value. And isn't that true? There are so many people out there just spewing just garbage just it's not even biblical or whatever. They don't even have an understanding of it. And you become jaded after that. But that doesn't mean that the truth loses its value. The truth is still truth. The truth is still the truth. That's what I love about the truth. Whether or not you or I believe it to be the truth, it's still the truth. I love it. No man has ever sought to counterfeit a valueless thing. Boom. So the more valuable something is, the more counterfeit you're going to have. Think about that. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because there's a lot of counterfeits out there. The vine is judged by the drink it produces and not by its leaves and appearance. It is the end product that matters. The pattern of the divine design is marvelous and it's working intricate. The threads are many and their preparation involves countless processes. The weavers are numerous, but few can visualize what magnificence completion may reveal, and none can see the uncompleted whole. That means as we're, even I would say a lot of the scripture writers, things like that, is none of us have all the pieces of the puzzle. All right. And there's other YouTubers out there, there's other teachers, other presenters. They have some great points on things. They have some great value. And we all have different pieces of the puzzle. I believe I have some value, and I believe I have pieces of the puzzle that other people don't. And they have pieces of the puzzle that I don't have. And that's one of the things that we need to recognize and come in this with humility. Go, I don't have all the answers. They don't have all the answers. Let's learn from each other. It doesn't mean we have to agree, but we can still learn from each other. The weavers are numerous, but few can visualize what magnificent completion may reveal, and none can see the uncompleted whole. Therefore, those who would show others the pattern to follow should not seek to guess at what lies beyond their own range of vision. All right. So let's take this with like me, for example. Okay. Like if I'm telling you guys that I believe the whole picture can be found with Yahuwah and his son Yahushua, or not the son of Allaham, who is also Yahushua HaMashiach. All right. But there are things that, so I want to point you to the truth. I want to be the flag bearer and say, this is it, guys. This is the truth. But I still don't understand the whole truth myself. All right. I can't guess, as this line says, at what lies beyond my own range of vision. I have a certain range of vision, but it's limited, and I have to recognize that. So if you are a prophet chosen to guide, do not exceed the scope of your authority or seek to describe things beyond the reach of your light. Now, there's one other passage in this chapter I wanted to read. I think I highlighted here. I hope I did. So this line right here is pivotal. When I'm reading all these extra biblical books and I'm trying to put the pieces together, I'm like, ooh, do these fit? I don't know if these fit. Well, look what this says here. Other doctrines have their books, and the best book is the one which benefits the most. In one book, truth may be described in one way, and in another book, it may be described differently. But this need not mean that one is right and the other is wrong. I think I just showed that with Genesis 6. I've come to appreciate the different points of views given in these books. Truth never goes unveiled, but the wise man seeks her where she is veiled the least. Did you get that? Truth will never fall into your lap. It has to be sought out. It is always veiled. Okay, the truth is always, because it's pure. The truth itself is piercing through the divide, right? It's coming from the heavenly realm to our realm and to the material realm. It will always be, it will never go unveiled. But the man who seeks the truth out, seeks wisdom out, it goes where it is veiled the least. Does that make sense? Where do you find the most clarity? All right. Hopefully that answered that question for you. And don't want to take all night at that. So it looks like here we have another question. All right. Well, let me see what we're saying here. Let me get back to my. Oh, also, this Thursday, I'm bringing Shelly on from There's No Place Like Home. And many of you are big fans of her YouTube channel and have been asking me for many months to get her on. And I'm very pleased to finally be able to rope her in. Hopefully she doesn't mind me saying that, roping her in. And my goal is to get into a weekly cyclical habit of interviewing one person per week. Okay. And I'm putting this invite out there for those listening right now. If you are a content provider. Okay, you're a researcher or content provider. Maybe you have a website. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you don't have a YouTube channel. Maybe you do. Email me and be like, hey, you know what? I'd love to talk about such and such subject on YouTube. And I'm not giving any promises, but I do believe in giving everybody a fair chance. And the reason being is that when I was still new at this, the person who gave me my first shot was Zen Garcia and then Rob Skiba. And both of them saw my value. I didn't have a lot to offer, but they saw the value and they gave me a shot. So I believe in doing that for everybody else as well. And I would love to bring you on and talk to you about your field of research. And it's okay if we don't agree on everything. Of course, here at Revelation 14:12, here at the Unexpected Cosmology, our theme verse is Revelation 14:12. And to rephrase that, it is keeping the commandments of the Father and testimony of Messiah, of Yahushua HaMashiach. Those are the set apart. That is defining the set apart, those who endure until the end, who make it into the kingdom. They keep the Father's commands, testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. Now, I understand that everybody is on a different point of their walk. But I do request that anybody who, comes on to be interviewed can at least, they're not going to come, they can at least agree that Yahushua is Messiah. I mean, that's a must. I mean, if you can't agree to that, there's plenty of other venues for that. Probably not even watching this anyways. I'm not too concerned. And the other one is, just even if you're in an infant walk, to understand that the commands of the Father are good, right? They're not evil. They're not a curse. Our Father in heaven would not give us something that is, bad for our health. All right. So let's see what this question is here. In the Revelation of John, Jesus is girded to the paps, which always drove me crazy. Speaking of breast, am I correct? The idea of paps that he has described as breast in Revelation. So if Mary Magdalene is married to the Master, could they have been joined as one flesh? Adam and Eve were one once. I myself am not favorable towards androgyny. One of the things I'm going to be talking about, I had started out describing the research I'm doing right now in the feminine divine in Grimm's fairy tales. And the first one I'll be looking at is Sleeping Beauty, though The Little Mermaid is actually really fascinating as well from the Mary Magdalene perspective. But just more generically, the feminine divine in Sleeping Beauty and some of these. And Carl Jung, I always want to say Carl Jung because it's both a J, but I guess it's Carl Jung. He described fairy tales as being very different from mythology, in that mythology is more like a rigid doctrine, kind of religious ideals, whereas the fairy tale is our subconscious. And it only really works on our subconscious. It's basically like our dreams. Like if you were to wake up from a very vivid dream and write it down into a story, that could be construed as a fairy tale. And so with a fairy tale, you're not necessarily, it doesn't have to be as rigid as doctrine, right? You have a little bit of looseness to play around with the pieces a little bit when you interpret a dream, even though there are some universal truths throughout. Now, what he talks about and there's a point to this, what he talks about is that there is two aspects of dualism within sexuality. All right. You have anima and animus. Anima would refer to the man, animus to the woman. And what the anima is, it's the feminine side of the masculine, whereas the animus is the masculine side of the feminine. And so what an anima is, Carl Jung would say that the anima is the most important thing, the more important than the animus in storytelling, because men typically tell stories. So when a man tells a story, he is speaking about the feminine according to how he understands the feminine in his anima, in the feminine side of his brain, which is not necessarily a representation of the true feminine divine. This is why the feminine divine is hidden so often. Whereas a woman, if she tells a story, she's going to tell about the masculine, the man, from her animus, which isn't necessarily true of a real man. So think about this in movie terms. One of the reasons why men get really frustrated with chick flicks is because women are describing the antagonist and protagonist, the men, the good guy and the bad guy, based on her version of men. And the guy looks at this and going, yeah, like the antagonist in there, that's not a real man. Like, that's not how men actually act. That's how the man acts in a woman's masculine side, right? So my idea on androgyny with Adam and Eve is not talking about a physicality. I do not believe that man and women the woman will cease to exist and she will somehow morph into the guy and they're going to be together. And I'm not saying that's what you were implying either. But just to be fair, to be frank, I'm not sure what you're implying. So I'm not trying to put any words in your mouth. But my idea of Eve returning to Adam, in fact, the Gospel of Philip does talk about this, is in the best described in the Carl Jung sense, that the animus will return to the anima, that there will be a whatever has left man when the woman left his rib will return. And I think that there's going to be an equal 50-50 dualistic reunion between man and woman in the resurrection. That's my idea on it. That's just my view, and that's what I'm developing in my current research. So something to think about. Do I have any other questions out there? Man, I have a lot of viewers tonight tuning in, but I have very few questions. Okay, so that is what you're implying, that all men are supposed to be united with the rib and become one flesh. My question would be, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm generally curious about this, trying to understand this, because the thing is about the Torah is that it makes it very clear that men dressing as women or women dressing as men is an abomination, and it seems to frown on any kind of androgynous activity. My question would be, what happens to the rib when the woman is joined back with the man? If there's a actual physicality happening, and what does that mean? Now, interesting with the Gnostic Gospels. Let's take the Gospel of Thomas, for example. I can't remember. It's just over 100 phrases in the Gospel of Thomas. It's like 110 or something like that. And the last one is the most popular one because Kepha, or Peter, he goes up to Messiah and he's always butting heads with Mary Magdalene. He's always competing with her. It's almost like two alphas. And though clearly in all these texts, it seems like Kepha is the one that's really butting heads with Mary Magdalene, not the other way around. And he looks at her and he's like, she's a woman. How is she going to enter the kingdom? Like, does she have to become a man? Because, only men enter the kingdom. And, and the response in most translations is that unless she becomes a man, she will not enter the kingdom of heaven. And you're like, wait, what? Messiah, you're saying that Mary Magdalene has become a man? Now, I've read a recent translator. Let me pull out his book. It's right here, right behind me. This guy here, it's a French guy. This is actually, I don't know if you see this. This is the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. And his name he's a French guy, Jean-Yves Leloup. And he had a really interesting essay. He wrote an article on how the way it should be translated is human, not man. And he said that many of these translators are purposely trying to be provocative. And when you get your translation to be super provocative, then it spreads around, people use it. And what has happened, it's damaged the Gospel of Thomas more than good, because now other people are looking at this and going, I don't want anything to do with this. And it's a sad part about translations, that there's not always honesty going into this. And he says that what Yahushua was actually doing was he wasn't agreeing with Peter. Because if he was, this would be a first, pretty much. I mean, it's always people go and they give some sort of worldview to Messiah, and he turns the table on them. And he shows them the kingdom perspective. So he turns the table on Kepha, and he actually says, unless if Mary Magdalene becomes a human, not a man, but a human, she will not enter the kingdom. And so it's like, wait, what? Because now it's putting the tension on Peter. And Peter is like, wait a second. Well, I'm a man, but am I a human? because a man is a human and a woman is a human, but he's talking about becoming a true human of both sexes. Anyways, that's just me rambling. Hopefully, obviously, I'm not going to be able to solve the issue of androgyny tonight, but just want to throw that out there. Okay. Question you asked, how much do you love your wife? If she could integrate with you, would you? No. I would say, I love you so much, baby. I'm not going to let you cease to exist. Um, uh, I mean, look, I mean, if I get to the kingdom of heaven and Yah's like, hey, you know what? This is the plan. All women jump into your husbands and become, the rib again. If that's what it is, fine. But, I don't think that that's the personally. I don't think that that's the one flesh that is being spoken about. Personally. All right. All right. Pamela asked me the question: can I talk more about the Mandela effect and the possibility of multiple timelines and I thought she said reptiles, but realities. Now, I need to point out to everyone, for those of you who know Pamela, she is the translator of the Paleo Hebrew Torah. She's doing a fantastic job. I am so just honored that that Yah brought her to me, and that she's working with me. It's such a wonderful gift. I mean, talent beyond words. But hopefully Pamela doesn't mind me saying this. If I understand Pamela right, she hates the Mandela effect. Like she struggles with the Mandela effect, and I think probably the only time she's probably really, she might add to this, but where I felt like she really struggled with things I was saying was when I was talking about the Mandela effect. So the fact that she's asking me about it now is quite interesting. So this might be a good turning point. Okay. Enos is just saying one more thing here before we turn away from this. He says, what if we could never be separated, and that's why there should be no giving in marriage in heaven? Yeah, that's an interesting point. I mean, I would assume that you're talking about maybe soul flames, that there was two souls that were matched in heaven, and you make it, all things to consider. All right. I don't have all the answers for that, but thank you for bringing that up to our attention, and I really do appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to be talking a little bit. I'm going to go into some Mandela effect stuff tonight. Did I start out saying at the beginning of this video? I think I did. That my middle name is Joshua. And one of the biggest criticisms that I get, I'll bring this up now since this is a Q&A. Oh, Pamela says she does struggle with the Emmys. She's a glutton for punishment tonight. She just is like, Noel, talk about something that I really struggle with tonight. One of the biggest criticisms that I get is on the names. Okay. I personally, I don't judge anybody who wants to say the Lord. If you want to say the Lord, I'm not out there judging people on this. People, I think, feel like I'm judging them because I don't say the Lord. To me, the name is important. When I see that the name of the Elohim, or you could say the God of Israel, was ripped out of Scripture, removed at least 7,000 times, and we're just talking in canon at this point, I take issue with that. This is what the truther movement is all about, guys. It's all about going, wait a second, that was removed 7,000 times, and I'm not okay with it. Can we all agree on that? Is that fair? Like, what is it about the name that the people who claim to be in the truther movement go, yeah, I'm glad that's gone. Please get rid of that and put the Lord in there. I'm totally cool with that, blind eye, and I'm going to be upset at anybody who's saying, like, what's going on with that on a deeper spiritual level? Now, again, I don't want to judge anybody because everyone's in a different spot, but I find myself that I'm heavily criticized for this, and they'll be like, I'll say, say Yahweh, which would be Paleo or Yahuwah or whatever, and or let's take the Jesus's name, Yeshua or Yahusha. And people are like, speak English, Noel, speak English. Well, the funny thing is that the actual English word for Yeshua would actually not be Jesus. It would be Joshua. And every paper I write, there's his name right there. Boom. So I always find this a little ironic that there's actually a book of the Bible called Joshua, and you notice it's not called Jesus. Like if the actual Hebrew name were translated Jesus, it seems like we would go Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Jesus, Judges, Ruth. No, see, I get thrown off. That's not even right. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. Right? That's the English of Yahusha or Yahushua. Just point that out. Of course, Jesus would be the English of the Greek of Jesus, and also the Latin. All right. I wanted to go over this paper here tonight. Back to the Future was an actual time travel movie. I'm not going to read the whole paper to you guys. I've gone over sections of this, but I had some added thoughts. And this, of course, goes into the Mandela Effect, and I'll talk more about it. And, you know, my whole theory with the Back to the Future movies is that it's an actual time travel movie. Like, had time travel not actually happened, then the movie would not have happened. Now, I'm not going to go through all the esoteric stuff tonight. Meredith asked, have we talked about pre-existence yet? Sorry, you missed the whole thing. No, I did talk. I mentioned it a little bit, but we can talk more about it later. All right. So I went through the whole thing about, you know, the Donald Trump timeline and the Back to the Future 2 and the parallel timeline and how that was actually predictive programming. And a lot of people, they adapt this idea that it's an Intel script, which it is. But the thing is that really gets to me with the Donald Trump storyline and 9/11 is that some of the stuff is so precise, like all the predictive programming that goes into 9/11, that I find it hard to believe that they were able to get it so precise down to the very day in the details 30, 40 years in advance. And so my thesis that I have put forward is that the predictive programming of 9/11, like that we see here, you can see here with the, let me scroll this down so you can see it. There's the 9 over there and 11. You guys have all seen this before. Is that it's actually 9/11 happened before we were born. Well, I'll speak for myself. I was born in 1980. Some of you were, if anyone here was born before 1970, 1972, then I would say not. But my theory is at some point in the 1970s is when I don't believe that people are physically capable of time traveling. And in fact, I think this is one of the consequences of Satan being cast out of heaven, that he is now trapped in time. The heavenly realm, they are outside of time, though it does collaborate with time, but they are outside of time. Yah can work outside of time. Clearly, Satan is trapped in time in this short season. And I think that's part of what's projecting this big push for time travel. And, you know, I've asked the question, have we gone through cyclical loops? That's like one of the most tragic things I can think about, because I really don't want to have to go through this again and have to learn from scratch. Though maybe it becomes easier for us with each iteration. I don't really know. And so that's my theory on this. And then here we see the, you know, this is a foreshadowing of the Mandela effect right here with the Twin Pines Mall. He takes out one of the trees when he time travels, and it becomes the Lone Pine Mall. Of course, here you can see 911 here with the Twin Pines Mall at 1:16 a.m. And then when he returns, it's 1:33. So we see the 33 when it becomes the Lone Pine Mall, kind of like an ascended master. Something I need to cover a lot more in these Back to the Future movies is just the constant death and resurrection ceremonies that go on in here. I mean, right here you see, here's Doc Brown getting shot and he's resurrected. But remember in the third one, he meets his wife where she dies and he actually saves her. And he goes back to save Doc as he dies again. He resurrects him. And then Doc resurrects Marty as he's being hung. And then in turn, Marty and Doc save the woman, Claire, who's supposed to die. And it's just this constant rising of the phoenix ceremony in these cyclical loops. Really, really interesting what's going on. And of course, here we see 9/11 predictive programming with the screen. We see his father, George, which is interesting here. It's recast as another actor. So here we have another idea of a different timeline iteration where the actual people change. But you see him as the hanging man here with the Twin Towers collapsing, which of course plays in with the Twin Pines Mall becoming the Lone Pine Mall, right? The Twin Towers becomes the single World Trade Center tower. And I should also point out here that, of course, some great predictive programming of all the transgender stuff happening. Of course, this is 2015 when this took place, and we see Michael J. Fox playing his daughter. So he technically had two sons, and one of them decided to become a daughter. I mean, I don't think I'm reading too much into that. It seems pretty weird that they chose to do that. A lot of us in the 80s, when we saw it, felt uncomfortable by the decision, but we had no clue where this was going, like that it became what it did. Again, just the predictive programming in this is so insane. And you guys are all familiar with this, all the 9/11 predictive programming. I want to get to the what I added here in this paper over the last couple of weeks. All right, I'm going to read you the small section. In the future, Parkinson's takes center stage when Time magazine names Michael J. Fox one of the 100 most influential people of the year. Which year are we talking about exactly? It just happened in 2014, April 17th. Now, today's day is May 7th. I wrote this on April 25th. So this came out, and I wrote it within a few days. It got me thinking, which is last week by my current estimate when I wrote this. Though it has been nearly 10 years since Marty's spin in the DeLorean and Back to the Future Part 2. He, of course, arrived in the future from 1985 to 2015, as you will recall. Why did I miss this aspect of the Intel script in my original analysis? I haven't the faintest clue, but do try and understand what I'm saying and also what I'm not saying. Unlike Stevie Wonder, who may very well be faking the blindness for all I know, someone will have to try awfully hard to convince me that Michael J. Fox doesn't have Parkinson's. For sake of argument, let's say he does. Though, again, I don't know how or why a situation would arise in which he wouldn't. Okay, so just so you know, I think he really does have Parkinson's. We are dealing with time travel in an Intel script, and Michael J. Fox may very well have been selected for his success with prior knowledge of what would unfold, though he would have likely been oblivious to it. Okay, so I'm not saying he was in the know on this. But again, there's so much going on in these movies that came true, far more than they will even admit to, or maybe not. Who knows what they know? He is also immensely talented, and I'm not trying to steal that from him. All right, the dude had to earn it in the Family Ties sitcom before getting hired on BTTF. All right, so there's no denying that Michael J. Fox is extremely talented. And he had to earn it. Everybody has to earn it. Well, I shouldn't say everybody, but the greats, they have their talents. Michael Jackson was a wizard, but he was a very gifted wizard, if you get my drift. Without going into all of that, though, it's pretty common knowledge nowadays that Eric Stoltz was the original Marty McFly, and that he was only grudgingly hired after Gary David Goldberg, that would be the creator of Family Ties, and the producer, wouldn't release Michael J. Fox from his contractual obligations. They fired Stoltz some weeks into filming, nabbed Fox, and the rest is history. I think they filmed the movie for an entire month in January of 1985, and they then fired him, Eric Stoltz. Despite all the teenage talent out there, they needed Fox for the role. Like nobody else, they really needed him. And foreknowledge may have had something to do with it. Now, the shaky hand theory, the shaky hand is a subplot of the entire movie. Right? If you remember the first one, his hand vanishes when he's up there introducing rock and roll to the world, so that his parents can have their sacred ceremony of their first sexual encounter. And then in the second movie, we see the shaky hand. He can no longer play the guitar. In the third movie, we see him being hanged. And in the third movie, at the end of the third movie, we see the scene where apparently he was supposed to get the shaky hand via the accident. Now, I'm showing you 4 scenes from all 3 movies, all of which play into the Fox Parkinson storyline. The first one you will recognize is the conclusion to his Enchantment Under the Sea dance performance in 1955. He has just beat Chuck Berry to the punch, introducing rock and roll to horny teenagers for the first time ever. And a lot of good that has done, seeing as how Daddy refuses to get hot and heavy with Mommy on the dance floor. His hand begins to vanish. And of course, just as it was with the Twin Pines Mall in 9/11, Zemeckis, Gale, Spielberg, and company were apparently concerned that we'd missed the connection with the shaky hand, which is why we then see Marty incapable of playing the guitar in 2015. After all was said and done, they knew what was coming. Fox was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 1991 at age 29. He wouldn't share the news until 1998, but then it was all downhill from there. He made another attempt at acting on the short-lived sitcom The Michael J. Fox Show, which lasted from like one season from 2013 to 2014. In it, he played himself, and I'm going to guess he would have tied Back to the Future 2 into the script had it survived one more year to 2015. I mean, they were trying to tie this up, I think, with Back to the Future 2. It didn't make it, though. Not all plans come to fruition. It is what it is, and Fox has since retired from acting. The third scene involves his arrival in 1885. Now, I tried to nab a screenshot of Marty running down the street, being chased by Biff's great-grandfather. I think it was his great-grandfather, Buford, Mad Dog Buford Tannen and company, but settled for his hanging at the courthouse seconds later. Now, give the scene another careful viewing, where he's running down the street. They're chasing him, trying to lasso him. And you can see a gimp in his stride. Now, I'm trying to find the interview with Fox where he said that was the Parkinson's kicking in. That was like the beginning of it. I can't find that interview now. It seems to be gone. But I remember him explicitly stating that. Now, the fourth scene invokes the accident, or rather the reason as to why Marty couldn't play the guitar in the future, which with the recent turn of events and the added component of free will doesn't actually occur. He chooses not to get in the race, doesn't get in the accident, doesn't have the shaky hand. The incident was supposed to happen when Marty finally got around to taking Jennifer in the truck out for a spin, which he had threatened to do at the ending of the first movie. This also explains why Doc appeared from the future at that precise moment, pulling Marty away from what he had hoped would be his first sexual ceremony, to spare him from the fate of his accident. So if you ever wondered why, he gets back to the future, his whole reality has changed. Marty wakes up the next morning and Doc just pulls up the driveway and grabs him, pulls him in the car. It's because he knew that within moments he was getting in that truck and he was going to go and get in the accident. And I think he was trying to divert that. They break at the stoplight right outside Hilldale, their future home, and Needles calls him a chicken for refusing to race him. You guys all know the plot. And of course, had Marty raced him, then he would have crashed the truck into a Rolls Royce, thereby permanently ending his career as a musician. Now, on second thought, the picture of Fox hung from a rope couldn't be any more perfect, especially considering the hanging man, which we've already covered. I showed you that as well from Back to the Future 2. A lot of hanging men in this, but then there's also the advancement from one degree to another within Freemasonry. I had a Brahmology on a couple weeks ago, and someone who had come out of Freemasonry talked about the noose that they would put around your neck as you went from one degree to another, right? The hanging, going all the way up to 33 degrees. Regarding the noose incident, so referring back to when in Back to the Future 3, he's hanging there from the noose. A stuntman was said to have been used for the wider shots, but for the close-up, the crew decided to stand Michael J. Fox on a box. The scene was initially shot from the waist up, but the plan being that he'd wiggle his feet around on the box, except that it didn't look right on screen. So it's why he claims he offered to do the stunt himself. And they literally hung him from a rope without a box. And he's putting his fingers there to keep the rope from choking him too much. And his feet was actually dangling for 2 separate takes. Now, this is what they claim. On the third take, Fox claims to have miscalculated the positioning of his hand. An artery in his neck was blocked and causing him to briefly pass out. Zemeckis, the director, yelled cut, and they pulled him down. And don't let what just happened escape you. It was while filming Doc Hollywood in 1991, 1 year after Back to the Future 3, that Fox developed a tremor in his pinky finger. And the doctor who diagnosed Fox for Parkinson's saw a, quote, this is from his book, a possible connection between the two events. The rope, that is. I'm sourcing Fox's 2002 book, Lucky Man, in the instance you were wondering where I pulled that quip from. And the lights went out on Marty McFly. Now, mind you, the rope is only a possible connection. Don't be telling me the shaky hand subplot was all a coincidence, thanks in part to the intervention of a stunt gone wrong, and that we're to go about our day to day like a good boy, paying these intel scripts no mind. Hanging Man, check. Flamboyant Masonic ceremony, check. The shaky hand subplot is all a part of the time travel narrative, and the rope sure does come across like a death and resurrection ceremony straight out of my Paul is Dead paper. Hopefully you guys caught all that. I have more to offer you here. Now, just yesterday, I dropped his name onto the Scrabble board and then walked away. This is 4/26 the next day. I walked away for a glass of wine and a bowl of full without giving the weight of what I had done much thought. How inconsiderate of me. Now, I don't usually lose sleep at night, and I most certainly slept soundly outside on the patio, listening to the frogs and the horny alligators. It's warming up here in South Carolina. Sleep outside, and the alligators keep you up. But it was a close call for sure. Now, Eric Stoltz was the original Marty McFly. He literally played the part alongside other cast members, Christopher Lloyd, Crispin Glover, Thomas F. Wilson, and Leah Thompson for an entire month before eventually getting fired on January 10th, 1985. They had the weekend to woo Michael J. Fox, or so the story goes. I'm just going off the official story. The entire, and we have shots of Eric Stoltz playing the part of Marty. The entire movie was reshot scene for scene, though there were some instances when the editing department was capable of dropping Fox into a single frame. A famous example of this would be at the dinner table. The family is actually interacting apparently to Eric Stoltz, and they just drop close-ups of Michael J. Fox. They edited Eric Stoltz out. Back to the Future is a time travel movie involving a narrative which has Marty returning to 1985 to a family which he had never experienced before. I mean, think about that. When he returns, his brother, his sister, his parents had lived an entire life for his 17, 18 years of life that he had never experienced up until that moment. Completely different life. They went from greasy, pimply-faced nerds to Wall Street brokers in a single night. Marty quite literally ricocheted off into an alternate dimension, completely separate from the one he'd left behind on the night that Doc Brown was shot. Whoops, there's another death and rebirth Phoenix ceremony right there. And of course, the twin pine to single pine mall exchange. Lots of those happening, apparently. We will never know what happened to Marty's old family, nor would they likely know what became of him on the night he went missing. I mean, he disappears. For all they know, he's gone. I don't know if he ever returned to that reality. Just as we have never seen any of that Eric Stoltz footage. So think about this. Marty veered off into an alternate reality, but then consider the situation which the cast and crew found themselves in. Ironically, they experienced a time loop of their own when Stoltz exited, hoping the door wouldn't hit him on the butt on the way out. Fox entered the Universal backlot and history was rebooted again. So in this way alone, the time travel movie was a time travel movie. They experienced the rest of the cast and crew experienced a completely separate parallel storyline with two different people playing the same character. Really interesting. And that goes, of course, into my Mandela Effect theory and all that kind of stuff. Fast forward to the most recent Flash movie. Do you see what I did there? Fast forward. By the way, I much prefer the 90s Flash with Mark Hamill playing the, I can't recall, Beta Joker. I don't really know what he's playing there. The Trickster, I think he was. Whatever, it's why I'm showing you a production photo from that one in hopes of rinsing out the bad taste of the most recent Ezra Miller Flash movie. I was so upset at how, destroying patriarchal society, they brought Michael Keaton Batman out just to kill him. Sorry if I just ruined the film for you, but I saved you the outing. There are two Ezra Millers in that movie, making this the worst Doublemint Twins commercial ever. Well, in the 2023 movie, The Flash runs so fast that he travels back in time or whatever to the day in which his father was framed for the murder of his mother. Apparently, all Prometheus Mercury / Flash needed to do was place a can of tomatoes on a shelf in the grocery store, thereby altering his future world. Or maybe he dropped it in the shopping cart. I can't remember at this point. When returning to 2013, his parents were together, but the universe was whack. His first tip-off being that Eric Stoltz had always starred in Back to the Future rather than Michael J. Fox. How cute. And I haven't even gotten to the Nicolas Cage Superman reality yet. How often must they mock us with their manipulation of reality and the Mandela effect? I mean, they were basically telling us in the recent Flash movie, it was, without saying the Mandela effect, it was Mandela effect, and that everyone in that reality, Michael J. Fox never played Marty McFly. It was always Eric Stoltz. Well, it doesn't end there. There's more to this. Here we can see the first movie relayed with the scene from the second movie. And what do you notice that is different there? Remember that time when I told you Marty McFly was recast a month into production? Well, Eric Stoltz was replaced with Michael J. Fox. Old news, right? That was a little over a week ago, and I haven't stopped thinking about it. There's a little typo there. I haven't stopped thinking about it, particularly since the entire movie functions as a cyclical narrative, and that Fox wasn't the first iteration of Marty on the BTTF timeline. The entire cast and crew experienced two versions of him. It's almost as if his parents had conceived their third child on alternate weekends, depending upon the given reality. Talk about your pre-existence right there. Same name, different person. Then it hit me. Stoltz wasn't the victim of the casting department. Marty's girlfriend, he wasn't the only victim, I should say. Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer, had her own identity crisis. In the first Back to the Future movie, she was played by Claudia Wells. But then in the second and third installment, she was replaced by Elizabeth Shue. That becomes particularly noticeable when the closing and opening scenes of the first and second movie are overlaid upon the other. As far as I'm concerned, there's a night and day difference between the two. Marty's entire reality has changed, and Jennifer is a different woman. Now, some of you might be saying, ha, 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 it's casting. Well, I don't know. It's just like all these things keep adding up. Like, I don't think that they're coincidences. I think it was all psychological. I really do. Yes, I know I've read the tabloids too. Claudia Wells' mother was diagnosed with cancer, causing Wells to put her career on hold. So sad to hear it. That's not the whole of it, though. Months before Michael J. Fox came on board, Claudia Wells was originally cast to play Jennifer, only to be replaced by Melora Hardin. Are you aware of who she is? Hardin later went on to play Jan Levinson, a Dunder Mifflin executive, as well as Steve Carell's toxic girlfriend on The Office. That was the original Jennifer, actually the second iteration of Jennifer, but not in the Michael J. Fox version. Confused? She filmed her scenes with Eric Stoltz only to be replaced again by the person whom she originally replaced, Claudia Wells. The excuse they give us this time around is that Melora Hardin was too tall for Michael J. Fox. I'm just wondering how much of this is ceremony. And also, in our multiverse of possibilities, is there a BTTF movie with Stoltz and Wells and another with Stoltz and Hardin? I didn't claim BTTF was an actual time travel movie for nothing. So that's all I'm going to read of this paper here. I'll get back to your questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Of course, here's the Mandela effect right here. You guys asked me to talk about the Mandela effect. This is the recent iteration. And then this is a VW, I guess, bus. And this is clearly what I went and looked this up. This is what I remember. It was a Toyota van, a 1984 Toyota van, the Terrace van. This is what they originally pulled up in. Now, before I even heard of the Mandela effect, I think it must have been maybe 2012 or the whereabouts. I can't remember where it was, 2010, 2011. I watched Back to the Future. I knew nothing about Mandela effect. It didn't even become a thing until 2015. I don't even know when the phrase was coined, 2014, 2015. And I saw this, the VW bus pulled up, and I'm like, I got really disturbed. And I felt this weird feeling like I didn't know how to process it because I'm like, it was just this dark feeling like that's not what it is. I don't remember that. And when the Mandela effect came up, I went back and looked. I'm like, that's it right there. Boom. That's what they pulled up in. It was up in this Toyota van, 1984 Toyota van. All right. So just looking at your guys' questions here, making sure I don't want to, if people are asking questions, I don't want to miss them. So let's talk a little bit more about the Mandela effect and my thoughts on this. And I really like Back to the Future as an example, because in Back to the Future, you actually have parallel timelines that Marty remembers both timelines, but the people on those different timelines, that's the only timeline they ever knew. And when a lot of us were coming into the Mandela effect, let me blow this up for you guys here. It was this case of like, I think a lot of us had a hard time processing it. And it was like we had these memories and other people are coming and say, no, you're wrong. It's false memories. It was always this other thing. We're like, what's going on with this? And because I have seen the swap happen in real time, I've seen it flip back and forth. I had to come to terms with the fact that something is changing to our reality. I can't explain it. I don't know what it is, but just because I can't explain it, it doesn't mean I have to accept all the mainstream theories. I don't have to accept, maybe it's CERN, maybe it isn't. I don't really know. I do think that they're tampering. And what I started doing when I wrote my Mandela Effect book called The Lion and the Lamb, and let me just show you guys here, if you guys are curious, let me go back here to my article archives. And just this week, I put in a lot of the PDF files from the Mandela Effect. You can see a bunch right here. There's a bunch of papers I'm going over. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 15 papers there. And I have probably about another 15 more to add. It takes a long time to transfer them over from my old website. Anyways, what I started realizing, particularly when I was looking into The Lion and the Lamb, let me start there first. No, I'll go over Samson and Delilah. No. Okay. Sorry, a little back and forth with you guys. I'll go over The Lion and the Lamb first. This is the one that really did it for me. And The Lion and the Lamb, by the way, that was another observation I had going back to like 2008. It was right around the time that Obama was elected president that I remember opening up the Bible to Isaiah 11:6 and reading the Wolf and the Lamb. And I went to that chapter repeatedly as a chapter of comfort. I used to love to talk about it, and it really disturbed me. I got such a dark feeling, way more than the terrorist van, that I actually closed that book and I did not read from Isaiah again until 2015 when I learned about the Mandela Effect. I was so disturbed by it. So as I was going in and researching it, I came across some interesting concepts. Now, right here, you guys have probably seen this here. Here's a residue picture where it says the lion will live with the lamb. Just the whole passage, actually, the Mandela Effect isn't just verse 6. It actually goes, people will criticize because the lion shows up later. And it's really 11, 6 through 9. And you can see the way I wrote it down as I remembered it, and as other people did too. I actually had this memorized. Back in 2015, I would quote this to people word for word. This is my contribution to the Mandela Effect community. You're welcome. Through you guys a bone, original content. This comes from the Book of Britain, and it straight up says, when the lion lies down with the lamb and peace or shalom reigns over all, there shall be found the kingdom of heaven. So here, and this quote is from Yahushua HaMashiach, from Messiah. He's actually quoting this. These are his words. He's apparently misquoting Isaiah in Book of Britain. Anyways, one of the things I started finding was the theology. People would try to villainize the wolf theology and say that, it's the Antichrist, all those kind of things. And I started finding that there were historical books that talked about the wolf as well. I'm trying to find it here. I'm trying to scroll through. Okay, so this comes from the infancy gospel of Matthew, and it says this is an instance of when they're going to Egypt, a baby Messiah with his parents, and it says they walked among wolves and feared nothing, and no one of them was hurt by another. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by the prophet: wolves shall feed with the lambs, the lion and the ox shall eat straw together. So now, of course, we're stating that the infancy gospel of Matthew has changed as well. But what I started finding in my investigation was that I started speculating, well, what if there are actually two realities? What if there's two realities? What if there was a wolf and the lamb? reality and a Lion and the Lamb reality. It's actually not bad theology. There's a lot you can tie with the Benjamin Wolf prophecy, and it shows up again in the 12 patriarchs, the Benjamin Wolf prophecy. And so I started thinking about that. Now let's jump into Samson and Delilah. And this is how I always remember the incident. I remember that Delilah cut his hair. And you see all these paintings here where she's cutting his hair. But now, of course, Samson himself in the English is another Mandela effect, the spelling of his name. But this is what it says now. This is the New King James Bible. It says, then she, this would be Delilah, lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. I also don't remember the 7 locks, but I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Like whether it was there or not, it's actually some really amazing theology. Like think about the 7 locks. It's pretty, when you cross-reference that, it's pretty awesome. The Mandela Effect has offered some really awesome stuff. And so I started looking through all the different paintings. Of course, here we see Delilah. This is in the Crusader Bible, Delilah giving Samson a haircut. Now you can see the Mandela Effect. Now Samson is spelled with a no P. I do clearly remember when it is Sampson, which, that's the English anyways. It's not even the original, but whatever. I do think it's a Mandela Effect. Another one, this is from the Bible series that came out in 2013. There's Delilah cutting Samson's locks of hair again. Here you see the Cecil B. DeMille movie from the 50s of Delilah cutting his hair. Oh, that was 1949. And this really broke my heart. Guys, this broke my heart. The Read and Grow Picture Bible. I had this as a child. I still have it. I ran to him like, no, it's the haircut. The barber shows up in this one. The barber cut Samson's hair. I could not believe that when I saw that. Just stabbed my heart with a spoon. And again, here's some paintings here that are showing up in a reality of the hair cutter cutting his hair. I don't remember these paintings, but I remember some of the others. I don't remember these. And then you go back and there's more. Well, these are Delilah cutting his hair. Delilah cutting the hair. All these are Delilah cutting the hair. No hair cutter in these. And Delilah cutting the hair. And of course, I show more research, like this one comes from 1809, an interesting political cartoon, Delilah cutting the hair. Well, I started thinking about this, and my theory on the Mandela Effect is that these are, for the most part, I wouldn't say it's all cut and dry, but for the most part, these are actual different variations within the different parallel timelines that happen, that somehow they're merging together. The idea is that when you are, if there are different multiple realities around us, and let's imagine that all these different realities are different puddles, and you can jump into these different puddles. The puddles that are the most close to us are going to appear the most like ours. If the two puddles of water were to run together and they would merge into one puddle, the realities would look very similar, but you would notice a little bit of slight variations here and there. Now, if you were to puddle jump out, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000, by the time you got way out there, it would look completely different, theoretically. Okay. I'm not a time expert. I'm not claiming to be. I'm just, reading reports, looking at stuff, and this makes the most sense to me. This is why we see little variations. Now, the theory that's happening here is that my thesis is that on any given day, each one of you have hundreds of decisions to make, maybe thousands of decisions to make, and there all could be variations. And let's imagine the situation with Delilah, and she's expected to go in there, lull him to sleep. She loves the guy. I mean, she loves him. I believe she loved him. I could be proven wrong on that. Maybe she was deceitful the whole way. But she was expected to cut his hair when he fell asleep because he's trusting of her. He falls, they have intercourse. She's a prostitute. He falls asleep. He feels the fact that he could sleep with her, literally fall asleep, shows that he's trusting of her. And she has to cut his hair. Well, imagine if there is a variation in the reality where she's like, she couldn't go through with it. She couldn't do it. I was like, I can't. I'm sorry. I said I could cut this guy's hair, but I can't do it. And they bring in the barber. They bring in the guy to cut the hair. And the end result is that his hair is still cut. The same thing happened. Like history didn't change in this way. It was just, there was a variation, and his hair is still cut. His eyes are gouged out. The rest is history. And I talk about this in my Back to the Bible paper that I wrote. I need to pause for a drink of coffee. I'm just checking the comments. If you guys are asking questions, I apologize if I'm missing them. See, I get off, talking on all this stuff. While I have you guys here, let's take a little commercial break. And I just want to point this out again. One of the reasons I'm doing these Q&A tonight is for this fundraiser right here. I really, need your guys' help to continue as a ministry. This is my full-time job, guys. I put night and day effort into this and into this research, and I have so much more to offer and give. I've been at this for I started this ministry, this online ministry, writing ministry, in January of 2017. I remember Trump is being inaugurated as president, and I felt like Yah had been preparing me for a long time, many years, but really for the last year before that, saying you're going to go in and do this. Back then it was simple, flat earth and, simple stuff talking about, but it's grown, obviously, a lot of knowledge, a lot of books. Came to the Torah, great times. And guys, I'm falling under this month. I need 5,500 more this month to provide for my family. And I raised 915 of that. So I'm really falling behind here. And, give it so many months. If it just keeps falling behind, I'm just going to have to go get another job. And this is where everyone can vote, vote. This is your vote, guys. And for those of you who are already sacrificing, guys, I'm not, asking for more. So many of you guys are sacrificing on Patreon and things. I really appreciate that. But if Yah puts it on your heart, if you feel encouraged by this ministry, if you like what's being put out here, the thought-provoking, the stuff, the research, even if you don't agree with it all. I mean, I disagree with myself sometimes. That's just the way of it, the game, when you're, in the researching world. But please, pray about it and consider blessing this ministry and seeing that it can continue. I'd really appreciate that, guys. All right, let's get back to this. Back to the Bible. So maybe I went full retard with this. I don't know, but I noticed things. I noticed things because I read a lot of books. I started out, I think this is a perfect discussion to have, because I started out talking about the variations in just basic books, like the theory of was Genesis 6 the Watchers or men, the sons of Seth? Who were the sons of Allahayam? And Meredith, you came in late. That's where I was talking a little bit about pre-existence. I could jump back into that again if you guys have a specific question. If somebody has a specific question about pre-existence, please ask now or forever hold your peace. I can't believe I've been at this for an hour and a half now, almost. And I plan to go about 2 hours. Well, one of the things that has perplexed me greatly was the two timelines. Now, there's what I would call the Greek LXX timeline and the Hebrew Masoretic timeline. I will remind you that the Hebrew Masoretic is the modern Hebrew. It's not the Paleo. It's not the ancient Hebrew. And you guys probably all know this now, that when you read the Greek LXX and you line it up with the Hebrew Masoretic in Genesis, like Genesis 11, Genesis 5 and 6, and so on and so forth, when it's talking about the different generations, they don't match up. And in fact, by the time you get to Yahushua HaMashiach, there's an added 1,500 years more to the Greek LXX than there is to the Masoretic. There's 1,500 years missing from the Masoretic. And there's a lot of questions people have about that. And if I were to take it just purely at face value, the Greek LXX timeline actually matches with actual real official history. It matches with Egyptian history, matches with Babylonian history, matches with all that. Whereas the Masoretic does not. The Masoretic claims that the flood of Noah happened, 4,000 years ago. With the Greek LXX, we're moving it to like 5,500 years ago. Completely different. And, this, of course, goes into the Millennial Kingdom research, my 7,000-year timeline thesis, my hypothesis, that according to people keep, bringing it up to me. They're like, no, we saw dates for the start and the end of the Millennial Kingdom, in this like commentary, in the footnotes in this Bible, that it's different. It's like, guys, that's great. We should take all of that, take all the evidence we can. But I'm going to take biblical books over footnote commentary any day. And so my theory, of course, is that around the year 536ish, 540, there was another Phoenix event. 500 years after Messiah is when the Phoenix returned, when the resurrection happened, when the millennial kingdom was ushered in some sort of physical manifestation, not just a spiritual one. There was some sort of physical reality that happened, which I still have a lot of questions about what it ultimately looked like. But lasted from the year 500 to 1500, Dark Ages, all that. So, according, what's funny is that would have been the year 6000. The 500 AD would have been the year 6000, according to the Greek LXX. We are like around the year 6000 now, according to the Hebrew Masoretic. So where everyone is waiting for the millennial kingdom now, according to that. But I have speculated, what if there's actually two separate timelines? What if there are completely that somehow paralleled each other, and at one point, some mile marker they connected? What if they connected with Mashiach? Just throwing that out there. This is where it gets really trippy when you start taking, when you start saying, okay, I believe the Mandela effect is real. I'm seeing real manipulation of time. And then you start looking at time itself and going, well, what if time, there's like these currents, these ripples happening, and these breaking outs and stuff. And what does that look like? And you take it to this stuff, and maybe that's why sometimes we see contradictory evidence. Maybe there's two things happening in more ways than we can ever imagine. And maybe the Jews manipulated the text and changed everything. I'm not saying they didn't, but what if there's more than meets the eye here? What if they're patsies? So, all right. Let me see here. Let's go back to questions. Meredith asked this question. I'm assuming she's asking me, maybe not somebody else. Maybe if she's asking somebody else, I'll answer it anyways. Do you think we are all aware of what's going on in heaven prior to coming here and then have our memories wiped? Well, I don't know if we are aware of what's happening here. I obviously can't answer that. I haven't seen books that have specifically stated that evidence. But I do believe, obviously, our memory is wiped. Now, there are some people who do claim that they do have former memories. There are people who claim they have memories of being in heaven and things like that. That could totally be. There could be scenarios, I think, where some people do have what we call residue, like fingerprints or imprints on their minds that hasn't been erased. It's almost like the discussion I had with Sean Walking Bear. I think I saw him here tonight. When we were talking about Ghost, and and we're taking ghosts at the value here of actual dead ruachs, of actual living souls that died. And what happens to them? They go to Sheol, right? There's a 7-day wandering period where they have a guardian angel. They go see things. They go to Sheol. They're laid down. Of course, now I believe that the righteous go to paradise, as Yahushua said to the thief on the cross. The paradigm has changed. The righteous have been emptied out of Sheol. That's a different discussion. But the question we came up with is, what if there are examples of actual dead souls that are stuck in this realm? What if it really does happen? I don't want to get all New Age on you guys, but I think it's a possibility worth asking, instead of just going, no, they're all demons. They're just demons deceiving us. No, like, what if, and guys, the scripture is clear. I'm not telling anybody to go make friends with a ghost. Don't invite them into your house. I'm not, cast them out of your house. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, what if there are possibilities where they are trapped here? And there are examples of people going and praying, like going into these haunted houses and places that are disturbed, where they, maybe it's a crying baby or a little child or something like that. And you hear that something horrible happened, like the mom drowned them or something like that. They're stuck there. And people have gone and prayed over this situation, and they've been lifted up and taken away. Something to think about. Like, what if actually praying for they're taken away is actually doing them a favor? They're being put down into Sheol, right? Something to think about. So, all that to say is, I don't know what our former life was like. The more I'm looking at this, though, I am highly speculative that, you look at our like DNA, right? The double coiling helix, and there's something very serpentine about it that bothered me for so many years. And what is there something angelic about our DNA? Were we? No, of course, DNA is in animals too. we were formerly the sons of Allahayam, the sons of God, but we're the watchers also classified as sons of God. We're those us. Satan, Hasatan, Azazel, is he a son of God? Now we know him that he's a serpent, he's the dragon. He appears to be a seraphim angel. In another part, we see in Ezekiel, we see the famous, was it Ezekiel 30? We see the famous cherubim passage about the one that was in Eden that was cast down. But was he also one of us? Was he a son of Allahayam in that sense? And I don't know if you guys have any more questions on that specifically that I can answer. Maybe I need to go back in and give a whole presentation on this idea of the marriage of Ruach again. I gave it in my Mary Magdalene research, showing that that there is marriage in heaven. There is not giving of marriage in heaven, but one of the attractions to coming to this earth, it's like, why are we getting married, right? Is it just for biological reproduction? Is that all this is? Do we whittle everything down just to just pure chemistry? Or is there something deeper spiritual going on? And is that spiritual union that we experience in marriage severed when we die in heaven? And I was like, oh, okay, well, let no man separate you, but guess what? I'm separating you. You guys aren't married anymore. Is that what's happening? I don't think it is. And one of the things I have shown in the book of the Nazarene is that Yahusha, he says, he gives an example of the woman with the 5 husbands, and she's with a 6th person now who's not married. And he's talking about the Samaritan, the woman at the well. And he's asked by one of his disciples, who's she going to be with? Now, it appears to be that these were brothers, that she went down the turnpike of brothers. She married the oldest. She may have never had children. We don't know if she had children, but it appears that maybe she never had an heir for the first one. And so the question is asked, who is she going to, what guy is going to get her? And Yahusha, being like he is, he always turns the table. And he says, who is she going to choose to be with? Who does her Ruach, her spirit, her soul connect with? This is the marriage of Ruach, of spirit, 2 spirits becoming one. And one of the things I talked about was this idea that if you're married to an older son and he dies and he has no heir, it is the responsibility of the younger child, assuming that the father's still alive and the inheritance has not been passed out. So the older son has not received his inheritance. It is the duty of the younger child to take on the wife of the older brother, if she so chooses. She could choose not to. She could be like, I'm out, if she wants. But if she's like, you need to marry me and have a son with me, it's his duty. He has to do this. Now, I'm not romanticizing a polygyny here in this case. I mean, they might really not like each other. I mean, the guy might be like, okay, how long is this going to take? We don't even like it. We're like really awkward in the same room. You're telling me I have to dress in front of you. And I was like, and I got it. Okay. How many times are we going to have to do this? And what makes it worse is that he has to produce a son. He might get, a daughter the first time. But what if he gets like 7 or 8 daughters? Are they considered heirs? I don't know. He got to get a son. And this son, he has to raise as his brother's son. So now this younger son has put all his money and finances into this other son. He's not going to get anything from it, right? So this is not necessarily a situation that, women are just like, oh yeah, men would love this situation. No, they actually may not like this at all. This might be very humbling for them. Very, very humbling. Think about all guys out there. Think about your brother's wives. Like, hopefully I'm not asking you to lust over them. Please do not do that. But I think generally speaking would be like, yeah, no, I don't want that situation. Please don't put me in that situation. And I'm so glad that my older brother has 2 sons. Never have to worry about that. But my point here is that there's something about that child, and there's a disturbance in the link that there was a son that was expected to him, and a son and a son and a son. There's like a line in the pre-existence, and I personally suspect that our entourage formerly in heaven is what we're supposed to kind of line up with here on the earth, as it is in heaven. So Yahusha's Talmudim may have been his entourage in heaven. And of course, who are you know that the gates in New Jerusalem have the 12 patriarchs, but what about the foundations of Jerusalem? The foundations have the names of the disciples. That's pretty crazy stuff. That they were there before the 12 apostles. Their names were there, telling us that there was an entourage. I believe Mary Magdalene may have been to the daughter of Zion, the daughter of Elohim. And so our goal here on earth is to align heaven with earth and to have our entourage here on earth as it is in heaven. That's just my theory. That's what I'm working with. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let's see. I'm seeing talk about going into the basement for a dryer. Okay, question is asked from Kyle Hoff. How much of Revelation has happened if it's 7,000 going on 8 great day? Well, prophecy, first of all, I would say almost all the prophecy has been fulfilled. That's my, again, perspective. I didn't start out that way, but the more I look into it, the more I'm convinced that all prophecy has been fulfilled. The only part that has not happened would be like when we're in all the way in Revelation 20 to 22, like those last 3 chapters. I am, if you have all been paying attention, see, the thing about investigation is that we change our opinions. If we're truly being non-biased, this isn't flip-flopping. This is, as we're investigating things and looking at different arguments, we change our opinion. And it's not just about proving ourselves right. It's about getting at the truth. And I started finding more and more evidence that 2 things were happening. When you're looking at like medieval literature and ancient Christian literature, that many of them already believed that New Jerusalem came down. And they meant it in 2 ways. They meant it physically, like a brick and mortar Jerusalem, but also spiritually. And I'm of the opinion that New Jerusalem has come down. Now, this is the big part of contention that most millennial kingdom Tartarian type people will say, no, it hasn't come down yet. It's a future event. I started out that way. I used to argue that. And then you have people stating proof that the millennial kingdom hasn't happened is that New Jerusalem hasn't come down. Now, I've shown that I believe that if there is a New Jerusalem, a physical brick and mortar, I believe it's in the hidden wilderness in the greater swath of land. And I'm not just saying that just to avoid, move the goalie net. I'm saying that because I'm reading that actually in books, actually ancient books that are actually claiming this. But I also believe that we are the living stones. We are New Jerusalem coming down. We are the fire that's coming down is the Ruach HaKodesh, and the living stones is New Jerusalem. So I believe it has come down in 2 ways. So in that sense, what I expect that we're waiting for is the final judgment of all the dead, and Sheol itself being thrown in the lake of fire, and Satan and his minions being thrown in. And I am I was a soul sleeper for years. I still am. I just believe that the timeline is different now, that the righteous go to heaven. But I do not believe that in eternal punishment, obviously. I believe that whoever does end up in the lake of fire will be terminated. They will be destroyed. They will cease to exist. Their very soul, which is divine, which is eternal, will cease to exist. It will be extinguished, which is a tragedy, but it's what they choose. With Satan, though, I'm not quite sure. I would love to say that he's extinguished, but Revelation doesn't seem promising. And multiple other texts that I read, like Enoch is like, he's going to burn forever. Not just the smoke of his torment, but he will be in torment for it. There's passages that say that. So part of me thinks that actually the fire will never go out and Satan will eternally burn for how great of a deception Azazel has done to humanity. So I don't know. That's something I'm just looking at. Let's see, what else have we got here? Let's see what I won't give your name because sometimes she doesn't like me to give her name on here live. But if we are the children of the disobedient at the third and fourth generation, it still makes no difference in that we love Yah, preach the gospel, and live righteous lives. I agree. That's it, guys. I'm not saying that's it tonight, but that's what it all comes down to, right? Like, just everyone asks me all the time. It's like, well, if all these things have happened, what now? And it's like, well, what do you mean, what now? That be obedient, keep the commands. Like, do you think it's going to be any different in eternity? Do you think, the prophets? Well, I shouldn't ask this because most people do think this. The prophets and David and Moses and all, they're all writing about how we're to keep the commands and live the set apart life. And they get to heaven and it's like, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. And they're like, sweet. Like, no, like, guys, it's on earth as it is in heaven. It's eternal, guys. So, like, no matter whether we're dead, resurrected, still not dead yet and living, I hope everyone listening, maybe there's someone resurrected living. I don't know. I'm listening right now. Amongst the 60 people listening right now, maybe one of you are resurrected. Never know. I would assume that whatever your status, that it all comes down to being obedient, right, to our Father in heaven. Let's see, what else did I have prepared tonight? I was going to go over my Alec Baldwin movie set. I even listed that as the name of the video. I don't feel like going through that now. Hopefully none of you guys arrived for that. Let me just go over again while I have you guys' attention. For those of you who weren't here originally, I want to show this off a lot. I'm really excited about this. The Unexpected Cosmology, we're not just a YouTube channel. We're not just a website. We're a ministry. And my goal, my desire is to as people are seeking the truth, okay, my goal is not to wake people up. My goal is to find people on the journey of truth who are seeking to show them the way, which is the Torah, Yah's instructions in righteous living. And I love talking about conspiracies. I love talking about, the Mandela Effect and time travel, all these different things, right? But for me, the number one thing is giving you permission to take the authority over your own spiritual life. People come to me all the time. They're like, my pastor, but my mom, but my dad, but my wife, but my husband, but my children, but it's always based on the excuses of other people. It's like, no. You have the authority to pick up the Bible and read it for yourself and then do what it says. That is my goal. That's what I want from people. You have spiritual terrorists and controllers all around you trying to get you not to do that. Your whole life, you are surrounded by those individuals. You need to recognize who they are, not allow them to quench the fire and to stop you, right? So one of the tools we have up here, my wife designed this. She's an amazing woman. She was a software engineer for years. Now she's the stay-at-home mother of my darling children. And I used to be the chef in my family, the cook. I was never very good at it, but used to cook like 90% of the meals in the house. And now she does it, and I'm loving every minute of it. Like, this is just amazing. I just love it. I don't take any meal for granted. Anyways, if you go to my website, if you go to the top bar up there, it says archives and resource material. There's a link there called the 613. I'm clicking on this right now. And this shows you the 10 Commandments. That's what you're looking at. Oh, here, let me get rid of this so you can read that. We see the 10 Commandments represented by the green dot here. The two orange separate the 5 and the 5. Love God, love your neighbor. The first 5 and then the next 5. So you can see here, like the 6th through the 10th commands: do not steal, do not kill, do not bear false witness, do not covet. And then over here, love God. Those are the first 5. So what this shows is this is designed for people who are new to the Torah, who are investigating it, and maybe they don't understand everything and they want to look, or if you're a professional, you've been at this a long time. And hopefully this is something you could show to your friends and family. I really want to bring people to the website and show them this stuff. So let's look at the 10th, do not covet. All right. So I'm going to go down here and click this. And boom. Oh, wow. Do not covet has a lot of laws with it. So this is the 10th command, and you see all of these correspond with people like, oh, I don't have to keep the 613 anymore. I just have to keep the 10. Well, the 613 are all there to explain how you keep the 10, all right? So let's just pick a random law, number 320. And it says the priests must not exchange their duties with their assistants, the Levites. Numbers 18, 2 through 3. Now, I'm not a Levite. So obviously this law on the surface does not apply to me. It doesn't. One of the great ways to understand this is that the 613 laws don't necessarily all apply to you because, you have to ask yourself, are you a landowner? Do you own animals? Are you a woman, a menstruating woman? Are you a man? Are you a Levite or a non-Levite? And you just go down the list, right? It's almost like if you go on an airplane, you're a passenger. There are laws that apply to you as the passenger, but then there are also laws that apply to the flight attendants that don't apply to you. And there are laws that apply to the captain or the pilots that don't apply to you. Okay, everyone has different laws. They don't all apply to you. Now, in this case here, I would say, if we take this more esoterically and understand that we are Melchizedek priest, I would, when I go through my Torah portions, I would ask this question when we get to Numbers 18, how does this law still apply to us? So I do think they all apply to us, just in a more esoteric. There's the letter of the law and then the spirit of the law, right? All right. Let's see. Do we have any other questions here? Am I missing anything? We've got some great conversations going on. I'm here for you guys tonight. I want to make myself accessible. And of course, I do this every Friday night on Discord for those of you who want to come by and have a conversation. We're, I think, planning to have the conversation this Friday night at 7 o'clock. I think we're going to talk about Israel and is the modern state of Israel the historic state of Israel? Now, my opinion is that it is. It is the historical state. If you look at my older videos for a couple of years, like all through them, I'm questioning. I'm like, is Israel really the ancient biblical state of Israel? And I don't think it is. And I was looking into it, and I finally, looking at all the evidence, I had to go where the evidence led me, and I had to weigh the scales equally. How I'm going to judge one situation, I got to judge both sides the same way. I can't turn a blind eye. I finally came to the position that there is so much evidence that points to Israel being the historic land, that the academic society, the atheists, all the scholars are trying to disprove all the time, trying to knock down, to try to discredit the Bible, and yet the evidence is actually there that it is the land. But anyways, we're going to talk about that this Friday night, I think. Hopefully get a good discussion on that for those of you who do think that it is not the historic land and you want to talk about it. But are there any questions here? It looks like I have some new comments. Interesting. Someone says, I think Israel might be in several different places through time with all the resets. Just an idea, as they are all real. Okay, here's a question here. Thank you, someone, for asking me a question. Can you explain the millennial kingdom in a summary? I know it's maybe difficult as there is a lot of material. Thank you. Okay, good. Now, the question you have asked me, if you were to ask 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different answers. Okay, just warning. And by the 10 different people, let's just even say researchers, YouTube content providers, you're going to get probably 10 different responses. I noticed that most go with what I would call, and I don't mean to say this in a despairing way or whatever, they go with the more mainstream Tartaria perspective. I have a very different, I kind of started out maybe that way. And the more I researched this, I came into very different conclusions. So I personally believe that the millennial kingdom, it was a literal 1,000 years in time. Now the kingdom of Mashiach is eternal. Okay, the kingdom, it's still here, and as Yahusha says, it's within us, right? I mean, we look around. Clearly, there is not a physical kingdom out there. It is run by Satan. It's a very dark world right now. But there was a time for 1,000 years when there was not just a spiritual reality, but some sort of physical manifestation of it. And I still have a lot of questions as to what this physical manifestation was. My thesis is that it was from the years 500 to 1500. Now, many people, this is why I say that when you ask different people, you're going to get different responses. I would say most people probably go with the the idea that time itself, it's all misconstrued, and there is, all the dates are wrong and everything was made up and invented and all that kind of stuff. I kind of played around with that. I started looking into Anatoly Fomenko 5 years ago at this point, and I started writing papers on him. And I wasn't jiving with that whole line of thought that, all the dates are messed up. And I actually, my understanding is that there's a general chronology, a timeline that even Satan has to work with. So I actually think we are probably 2,000 years removed from Mashiach, in the sense that we're living, I don't know the exact year, but we believe it's 2024, right? I'd say that's fairly good representation. And so from the year 500 to 1500 would be the Dark Ages, right? This is Orwellian talk for really what was the Age of Light. And I believe that this would have been the millennial kingdom of Yahushua HaMashiach, in which there was some sort of manifestation in the realm. We see this, the bones, what I would call the bones of the kingdom in the architecture. The Gothic architecture is amazing. It's phenomenal. It's like nothing else in history. It was unique. It came out of nowhere. They have hardly any explanation. They just have some explanation that some architect came up with it, and all of a sudden they sprang up all over the world on every continent. And one of the things that really strikes me is how, when you look at medieval culture, you look at the European Union to this day, all these countries are very segregated. Still, even with globalization, and I use that word globalization on purpose, even though I don't believe we live on a spinning globe. But you drive 100 miles in any direction, you're going to get different languages, you're going to get different culture, different styles of dress, different ways of doing things. It's very, very segregated there. And yet, even with all that segregation, you have a universal language, which was Latin, and you have all these beautiful cathedrals that all look like they go together, and the architecture as well. So that's kind of in a nutshell. I believe that there's been multiple resets through the years. A good reset would have been, like, say, in the 500s. 536 is one which I describe as a fire reset. Appears to happen worldwide. There was multiple volcanoes going off, smoke, heat, all sorts of stuff. We see more resets in the 500s, the 1400s. I'm sorry, the 1400s, 1500s, 1600s. Probably another big one in the late 17, early 1800s. Just multiple resets in which there's like onion layers to history, and they kept scrubbing the past and adding new stories, and then scrubbing and adding new stories, kind of overlaying, and just quirky things like that. And that's kind of in a nutshell. Hopefully that kind of explains it. So again, I personally believe that Mashiach kept to his word. He said that he was coming back for that generation. He was not describing a generation 2,000 years removed in which nothing would happen for 2,000 years, and then boom, he would show up. He came for that generation. You look at all the writers of scriptures, even Paul, James, Peter, Jude, they're all talking about, in that generation, it's going to happen. He's at the door. He's knocking. He's coming. Get your heart ready. Here he comes. He was coming. Paul wrote in Romans how he's coming in judgment for that generation. They're going to be judged. Yahushua said to the temple controllers, he said, "You will see me coming in my glory. You will." And he tells his disciples, "I will come and take you to where I am." Things like that. And I believe he fulfilled all those by 70 AD. He came. He destroyed the temple, destroyed Judea, dispersed, great divorce of Judah. They were kicked out of the land, and the rest is history. So hopefully that answered your question. And of course, I have a lot of research on that, and multiple papers, books, and so on and so forth. We're coming up here on the end. Let me just see if there were any other questions that were asked. And I do appreciate anyone who asked. Okay, so here's another question. Noel, I love how humble you are. Oh, gee, thank you. And willing to change your beliefs after researching, which is very hard to do, by the way. I mean, it's painful. And I get accused of, people are unforgiving. I'll give you an example. Now you asked a question. I'm going to get to it. I think I see a question mark there. That's why I picked it up. a couple of examples of this is one was, is Israel being the historic land or not? And I started looking into it before when it was still taboo, and it's like it wasn't even like a cult mentality yet. And there was a paper that you could see back in 2020 that was a very well written paper on somebody wrote on North America being what she believed was Israel. Very good written article. I really enjoyed reading it. I actually published it physically in one of my magazines. And I don't remember what issue offhand. And I was really looking into it, and I had to change my opinion on it because I would just like, it just became madness to me. It became madness that we're like, okay, Israel is not the historical land. Okay, so everything there is all planted evidence. Everything in Israel, the city of Nineveh, that's planted evidence. The Red Sea crossing, planted evidence. Mount Sinai, planted evidence. The Ark in Turkey, planted evidence. Or some people, I guess, are saying it's Nephilim. You just go down this list. Just planted evidence, planted evidence, planted. It's all a coincidence. And then you pick up a rock in Utah, and you're like, proof, and it's like, oh my goodness, or it just became madness to me. Or like, there are no pyramids in the Bible, so therefore clearly Egypt is not the Egypt of the Bible. And then you go to the Grand Canyon and see the pyramids, which I've covered in my writings, the melted city there, clearly an ancient city that was judged. And they're like, see, it's Egypt. I'm like, no, you can't use that. You can't dismiss the logic over here and then add to it over here. But to see the thing for me that really, I was supposed to talk about this Friday night. Maybe we said, well, the thing that some people are just going to like unsubscribe as I'm talking about this. They get so upset over this because they so don't want Israel to be the historical land. But here's the thing for me. Here's what really bothers me about this. And again, I welcome this debate for everyone. Please bring forward your evidence. If you can prove that North America is Israel, I want out. I don't want to be here. Israel is divorced from the land. Okay, there's no going back. So the thing is that everyone is so concerned about finding where Israel is. Some people say they have undeniable proof it's South Africa. Other people say it's England. Other people say it's Spain. Other people say it's North America, all different parts of North America. I've actually seen people claiming it's South America now, which has me a little surprised. I'm waiting for someone to say Australia. But the thing is that like they'll be like, okay, here's Israel, and here is Babylon, and here is Egypt, and it's like, okay, that's very clever of you, but it's the conspiracy is not about Israel being a different place. The conspiracy is now the fact that every single city on earth, we're lied to about every city. London is not the true London. Timbuktu is not the real Timbuktu. Carthage is not the real Carthage. Syracuse is not the real Syracuse. Rome, you look at Greece, Persia, India. You go down the list, and now you have to, Africa is not the real Africa, so on and so forth. And it's like now you have to. It's like if I'm going to agree to this conspiracy, I want to see someone come up with maps and go, okay, fine. Israel's in North America. There's Egypt, there's Babylon, but then there's Persia, there's Greece, there's Rome. And guys, what about the thousands of cities? Where's Bethlehem? People are like, oh, well, Jerusalem was destroyed. Fine, Jerusalem was destroyed. But what about Bethlehem? What about Nazareth? Let's look at the thousands of cities in the New Testament alone. Where did they all go? And it's convenient to say, oh, they all melted. It all melted, right? Anyways. Continue your question. I'm sorry. I went down that whole tangent. I'm unforgiven for that. And also Paul, because I used to be anti-Paul. And I was full on anti-Paul. And, and then I took down all my research, all my papers on that. And I went back, and I guess I flip-flopped on that issue. I found that I was wrong. It was hard. It was hard to go back, and I've been unforgiven. A lot of people won't forgive me for that. Anyways, if New Jerusalem has come down, then shouldn't Satan be in the lake of fire already? How can he be ruling here? So you bring up a great point. So this is what I used to argue for, that here, let me read Revelation. Let's just go, let's go there and read this so we can get this order of events correct. And this is what I used to argue for, and that New Jerusalem has not come down yet. Come on, Bible Hub. I really like Bible Hub. It's my go-to. Which translation should we pick? Let's just go with the King James, just to be safe. All right. So Satan is bound 1,000 years. He's cast in the bottomless pit. Shut up. Set a seal upon him that he should deceive the nations no more till 1,000 years be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given them. The rest, okay, we go through that. Satan's cast in the lake of fire. All right, and then we go to 21, new heaven, new earth. And in verse 9, it's where he says, and there came unto me one of this, this is when New Jerusalem comes down. Do I need to read the whole thing? You guys get the order of events. So, yeah, the question is in the vision, is this chronological, right? And if it is, then I would say then New Jerusalem physically has not come down yet. That's where the position started. But now I have changed my position, and maybe I need to get more concise in this, because you can perhaps source this earlier on, like Revelation 13 whereabouts, and that the Revelation is kind of written almost cyclically, like a scroll, like you break off a seal and you unravel it and you break it off again and unravel more. It's almost written in that way. It's kind of very strange, very coded. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with either explanation. I don't really have a bone to pick in that fight, but I do see a lot of really good, what I think is good theology through history, where they're talking about that New Jerusalem has come down physically and spiritually. So it either way, it's fine with me, whatever it turns out to be. All right. And next question, you said in the lake of fire, the same thing. I'm not sure from what. Like lake of fire, the same thing as what? Is the pit, Gehenna? I'm not, obviously it's different from Sheol. Gehenna is I think Gehenna is the lake of fire. Gehenna is the valley, that was like right outside of the temple. And what's interesting, quick trivia here, if the modern Temple Mount is where Solomon's temple was, and I don't believe it was, Gehenna is on the other side of the mountain. So you would have Mount Zion and then Gehenna on the other side. Well, I actually believe that the temple was on Mount Zion and that the Temple Mount was Fort Antonia. And people go, well, I know it was a Roman fort. It's like, okay, well, Solomon didn't build his temple on a Roman fort. He didn't build that. He didn't build a Roman foundation for a temple. Okay. So as Josephus said, that every foundation was removed from Jerusalem except one, which was Fort Antonia. He said even the temple foundation was stripped there, removed. And so if the temple is on Mount Zion, it's kind of interesting. The Gehenna is right on the other side, which is a picture being cast outside the kingdom, right? That the trash that's just dumped outside. Kind of on a heaven on earth type of idea. And of course, it's down in Gehenna where they would, interestingly enough, offer their seed to Moloch. That was not a coincidence. It was their way of trying to circumnavigate the coming lake of fire. So I don't know what your question is, but yeah, I would say that Gehenna and the lake of fire are the same. Some people might disagree with me on that. Oh wow, we just got a bunch of questions pouring in now. Isn't New Jerusalem the land now? Not sure what you mean by that, Meredith. So here's my idea on the land. And this is what I'm saying. For those of you who are saying that North America is Israel, and you might be saying more than that. You might be saying like, well, okay, I've seen different maps drawn up. I'm confused because there's nothing really precise and everyone has their, they're so convinced that Israel isn't it, but they're so convinced that, this is, and they can't all agree. But, maybe like California might be Egypt. I've seen different things. Maybe New Mexico's Babylon. Not always, that you have the Mississippi River that maybe is the Jordan, different things like that, right? However one feels about that, if North America is the land, I'm telling you all right now, then please prove it so I can get out. Okay, Israel was divorced from the land. My idea of the divorce is you're vomited from the land, and there's no going back. Okay, I know there's a lot of talk in the kind of Hebrew roots, this big idea of being brought back in through marriage, through Yahushua HaMashiach. but I see no evidence that they're brought back into the land. The problem with a lot of this research, they're saying that when Yahusha died and resurrected, now Israel can come back to the land. Well, they've been waiting, 2,000 years for that? Like, why didn't he bring him back into the land right then? It's kind of a little awkward that then, 70 AD happened. A little awkward. So when we're divorced, Israel was divorced and then Judah was divorced. Okay. Removed from the land for good. You're not to go back to the land. That's my take. I could be wrong about that. That's my position. For those of you who want to enter New Jerusalem, which gate are you going to enter in, right? It's only offered to the 12 tribes. Okay. So by default, I'm going to go in through Ephraim. Unless if, there's an angel there going, hey, psst, hey, you're actually really Naphtali. I'll be like, sweet, or Reuben or whatever, they'll be like, you're Dan or whatever. Fine. I'll go in through those gates. Actually, I don't know if there is a gate to Dan. I'll have to look. So hopefully I'm one of the 12 that actually there's a gate. I'll go through Ephraim through default. The point is that if North America's land, I want out. So Israel, I think that plot of land over there, when people get hung up on how small the land is, it's like, yeah, maybe there was a point to that. Like, it was this little chunk of land, and Abraham was really looking to the greater inheritance. He was not really looking for Canaan. He was looking, as Hebrew would say. And so you guys know in research on the hidden wilderness that there's a huge swath of land that is talked about by all the ancients. I shouldn't say all, I shouldn't generalize, but even the Essenes, the Dead Sea Scrolls, they talk about it. They were believers in it. And that's a material place in our realm where you can only go when you're dead as a spiritual entity. And this is my belief for why the global deception, they need to seal it up. And this is where New Jerusalem would come down. So this is the true eternal inheritance, the second Exodus. This is where paradise is when it comes down. This is where New Jerusalem comes down. This is where the eternal marriage is. All right. So hopefully that makes sense. So if New Jerusalem physically comes down, then I believe it is in the hidden wilderness. And I've sourced why this is. I've sourced this in multiple books. And, people can accept those books or not. But nevertheless, it shows that the ancients believed that as well, that there was the hidden wilderness, the blessed land, the undying land, and that is where New Jerusalem comes down. Hopefully that explained that for you guys. Yes, Mandela Effect is very real. Okay, so getting into the question. Okay. Well, Meredith, you say it doesn't matter where the land of Israel used to be. It kind of does. It kind of does because here's the thing. Two things here. One is that it does matter because I'm not supposed to be in the land. And so I hope Yah is not being a trickster or working with the trickster to allow me into the land, because I'm not supposed to be in the land. The thing is that this is where I go back to Satan is the accuser, and we have to understand when people are like, well, he lies about everything. Yes, he does lie, but he has to give us the truth. He has to give us the truth, because if he lies to us if he doesn't give us the truth, he can give us the truth and then lie about it. He's free to do that. He gives a Genesis and says, don't believe the creation story, believe in evolution, these kind of things. Don't believe the Torah. But if he lies to us about that, then I guess we're off safe. I guess we're off clean. Be like, sorry, I didn't know I was living in the land, even though I was divorced from it, right? Because you didn't tell me. I was lied to it by Satan. I have an out, and I think that he can do more damage by taking a people group that are not the true people group. He can lie to us about that. And the information is there, by the way. People can research them and find out that they're not the real people group. So it's not like this is a hidden knowledge. And he brings them in a fake Exodus and lies about the whole thing. And I feel like that's way more damaging. I feel like that's how Satan would operate on a much more damaging level. So for me, it does matter. But here's another way that does matter. I am highly suspect. I can't say this enough. I find if you guys get upset at me, people get upset at me all the time. I'm just a dude here researching, right? My concern with this whole Israel is some other place movement is that why is everybody so concerned about Israel? Like, let's flip it. Like, why aren't people concerned about Timbuktu or Syracuse? Like, oh, they're lying about the location of Syracuse. I want to find out the real Syracuse. Does everyone understand this irony I'm talking about here? Everyone makes it out like they're just concerned about where Israel is. Like, that's what this is. But the true conspiracy is that everywhere is fake. Everywhere. There is no true London. There is no true England. There is no true Spain or Rome or Greece. Because if you move Israel somewhere else, you got to then take all these ancient maps, all these locations where they talk about them on all their journeys, and you got to transfer them over. And Israel had neighbors. It wasn't just Egypt and Babylon. They actually had a bunch of neighbors all around them. They had the Edomites and all these different people. And so for me, my concern in this is that this is a movement that is led by people ultimately who don't believe the Bible is true. And I believe that they're leading people into there is no truth. The Bible is. I have seen more people in this whole Tartarian movement fall away from Scripture. People are just falling away in the hand by the droves, because they're like, all of history is fake, all of it's invented, and then they're still clinging to the Bible, and pretty soon that becomes futile. It's like they're just being laughed at, because they're like, how can you say all this is made up but this isn't? So I don't know. That's my concern for everybody out there, that as you guys go out there and pursue these different conspiratorial ideas, to make sure to guard your hearts and your minds and the commands, and make sure you're guarding the commands. If you drop the commands, it's going to fall away. I'm seeing people left and right. The people on my admin team and stuff, we're just watching people left and right, and people think it won't happen to them. And I'm just skeptical. I'm just skeptical that the whole Israel thing is trying to lead people away. Like, not all these conspiracy theories are innocent. I'm sorry, guys, they're not. And I bet, just put it, maybe you guys can rack this up. There's like no respect for elders anymore. I know some of you listening are older than me. Everybody, it seems, out there in the truth of the world kind of has this idea that they know better than everyone else. They hold their noses up even at presenters and content providers and researchers. And there's this idea that we know better than you. You don't know what you're talking about. I have seen that attitude before with vast movements of people who, there were like Torah leaders and others trying to warn people, please don't go down this path. And the other people say, you don't know what you're talking about. They went down the path and they slipped away. And so just take these gray hairs on my head. They're building. Maybe this is a little bit of wisdom. Maybe I know some things. Maybe I've seen some things. Just warning everybody about this. I love you guys. And I don't want to see a falling away, particularly while I'm on duty, while I'm on guard duty. It's my duty to make sure that we can have these conversations. We can talk about different things, but I'm always leading you back to Scripture. So here's the thing again. So all these people out there are validated. You have all these scholars who are saying the Exodus never happened. The whole Bible's made up. You can't prove any of it. And then you have these other people out there, and they're literally proving it. They're going out there and showing this is where the Exodus happened, right here. Here's where the Israelites camped, right here. Here's where Mount Sinai is, right here. Here's Noah's Ark, right here. Here's the city of Nineveh. Have you guys looked into the ruins of Nineveh? Did you guys know that nobody would know Nineveh even existed? Nobody would know it existed if it weren't for the Bible. Yah so scrubbed Nineveh from history. It was a major, huge city by any standards. I think it might have been bigger than Babylon. It was huge, and it was completely scrubbed. They found the ruins, and amazingly, our controllers, went in there and they dug up evidence that validated the Bible in more ways than even I imagined, even than I thought. They were pulling some amazing things up that validated other finds. And I guess it's all planted evidence, right? But the thing is that the scholars are squealing at this. They're all trying to disprove the Bible. There's other people out there saying, no, it's true. And now we've got this new movement that we're saying, no, all of that's planted evidence. And we've got these melted mountains out in Utah, and the basin over there in the Salt Lakes and Las Vegas area, whatever, or wherever people are putting in saying this is, and it's just, I feel that I'm going to call this. You guys quote me on this. that this movement is going to pull a lot of people away. A lot of people are going to fall away. They think that they're, trying to prove the next thing, and they're going to go to a dead end, and it's all going to seem empty, shallow vein, and it's going to fall away. So when I'm looking at the evidence, I see so much, and I've come back to this. I see so much evidence out there that the historical land of Israel is the real land. And like I said, it's much more damning for Satan to draw real people out there when he's not supposed to. Way more damning. And for the whole Zionist movement, way worse if it's in the real location rather than a fake location. Again, that's just my say on it. You guys disagree. Okay. So, yeah, it was a 3-day journey. And there's actually, when you actually go look at the ruins of Nineveh, the king in there, Sennacherib, he's only mentioned in was it 2 Kings? Is it? Or no, he's mentioned Isaiah. I'm trying to remember all where he's. So the Sennacherib, what he did is he was the king of Nineveh, and it specifically says that in the Bible. I wasn't prepared to give a study on that tonight. You can pull up the passages where I said he went back to Nineveh, and he went in and he destroyed every single city in Israel and Judah, every single one, but one city. He had a perfect 100% track record. There was not a single city on this earth that he did not go and wreck, all the way down to Egypt. And the only city he never took was Jerusalem. All right. And that's the story, I think, of the angel of Yah. They went out, I think it was like 150,000 that were killed in a single night. When Hezekiah stood there on the wall with Isaiah. And so in Nineveh, they found the king's palace, and they found they were digging all these tunnels, and they found this one. You can go see all the artifacts out in the British Museum. I'm sure, yeah, they planted them all there just to prove the Bible right in the wrong location. But what was amazing is they found all the stuff that they couldn't read. They had no translators at the time to read it. They didn't know what they were looking at. And they knew it was something really special, and they put it up in the British Museum. And as they were finally able to translate, they found that Sennacherib was bragging about how he destroyed the city of Shechem. I think it was Shechem, which that ruin has also been found in Israel, I think to the west of Jerusalem. And anyways, he talked about how he destroyed all the cities of Jerusalem, and he destroyed Shechem, which was the second biggest city. But he said he surrounded Jerusalem. He never said he destroyed it. It was really interesting. And he bragged about how he surrounded Jerusalem and he held it siege. And anyways, it was just, some really fascinating things out there in Nineveh that they discovered that actually backed the Bible. Anyways, I should probably close for the night. We're going long. I'll just close one more time, guys. I do these Q&As. I was going to give a long presentation tonight on a couple of things. I have some fantastic research I'm looking forward to going through with you guys. Again, I'm going to have Shelly on from There's No Place Like Home in a couple days on Thursday. I decided to do a Q&A tonight. I'll probably do these about once a month just to kind of check in with you guys and just really encourage you guys, please, I'm at the mercy of everyone here, and support this ministry. If you like what I'm putting out, the content, if it's encouraging you, if it's helping you in your growth and your walk, I mean, my desire is that you guys live a set apart life. I'm giving, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here like I'm holier than anybody. All I'm doing here is I'm holding up the banner and saying the flag and trying to rally the troops, say, you guys can do this. You guys can live a life for Yah. You can obey the commands. This is what we're called to do, right? His people, if we're in a covenant with him. I just want to remind everyone, just please consider subscribing to Patreon. You'll find all the links under these videos. And the great thing about Patreon is that, every single dollar you put in, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 30, 50, 75, 100, 150, we also have a $500 and $1,000 option if you're curious. But up to $150, you get all of that back every month in coupons. I just sent out the coupons today. You go to the store, you can get books, that kind of stuff. We are, a book publisher. We put out a lot of new content, a lot of old content, a lot of new content. And right here, if anyone wants to go above and beyond, you can see what I need to make this month to survive, $5,500. We're not anywhere near that right now. What the good news is when we started this out in January, Okay, so when we started this out in January and y'all pulled me into the full-time ministry and like, this is it, single income household kind of ministry, we unfortunately did not have the house paid off yet. We had all of our debts paid off, and we were not planning to enter the full-time ministry until 2025. We were going to have the house paid off, and y'all was like, no, you're doing this today. We were able to put all of our money together everywhere, just pull it all out, sell our crypto, everything, paid off the house. The house is completely paid off. You are looking at a guy who's now debt-free. Okay. I'm in the ministry debt-free. I have no worries of the world in terms of debt. But one thing, we are bone dry. Like, we are, I guess, living off bread. We are bone dry. We had savings, and maybe the savings was, lack of faith, kind of holding back from allowing God to work. And we were thinking, well, maybe we need to live off this because maybe we're not going to make the income. But anyways, just letting you guys know our situation, and love you guys. I'm going to be closing shop for the night. Some of you asked questions I may have missed. I apologize. I tried to get what I could. And it's kind of funny when, like, I answer a question, you guys answer another, and it starts becoming like a little argument. So, like, you guys are typing and I'm like speaking out loud, whatever. And I just hope you guys understand, like, I hope you guys know this is not an ego thing on my part. If we disagree, fine. All I can do is I read books, I put passages together, I try to show you how they all fit. I put a huge emphasis on scripture, on actual ancient books rather than photographs and things like that, and that's where I try to get my knowledge from the ancients. That doesn't mean I'm right. Just what I try to do. Hope you guys appreciate that. Hope you guys appreciate what I'm trying to do, even when we disagree. And that's it. I've been threatening to close shop for a long time. I'm really doing it this time. I think my wife wants to come in and go to bed. So love you guys. Good night. We'll do this again.